Dan McLaughlin. You got Dan, right?
Yeah, he's on screen.
How many do you need? 4?
Yeah.
You got 4. You, Dan, Deb Howell, and Mark Schwab.
Okay, the Finance Committee of Wednesday, March 24th at 7:15 will come to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dave, present the colors.
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance to the flag
flag
of
the
the
flag
United States of
of the
America
United States of America
and to the
and
republic
to the
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under
under
God,
God,
with
indivisible,
liberty
indivisible,
and
and
justice
and
justice
for all.
justice for all.
Someday we'll do it on that.
Okay, we will do roll call.
It's a
Ms.
good
Walsh,
thing we're not trying to sing in a choir because nobody's together here.
Oh,
Sorry, Ed.
okay. Ms. Walsh, can you take roll call for your committee, please? Municipal Ops.
I don't know what I did with my membership list.
Hey, Bob, can you vote?
Have
Yeah.
myself, Dan, Deb, and Mark.
Oh, need one more. We'll take roll for FinCom. See if you can find one more person. Okay, Ed's here. Bob,
Here.
Chet. Hello, Chet.
Here.
Oh, Chet's here, okay. Dave, Lori,
Here.
Diane,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Jess,
Here.
Ben,
Here.
Joel,
Here.
John Anzavino,
Here.
the John Rock,
Here.
Marty West,
Here.
Elliot,
Here.
Vaughn,
Here.
Enoch. Hello, Enoch. No, he's not here, I guess, right now. All right, we got 14.
No, I can't. Mr. Chairman, I found my membership list. If you could bear with me while I take
Sure.
attendance.
Okay, well, just get the roll, yep.
Jared Rose. Cynthia Walsh is here. Dan McLaughlin.
Here.
Deborah Howe.
Here.
Yep.
Stacy Berry.
She's not available tonight. She's not here.
Thank you. Mark.
Present.
Heidi. Our quorum is 5 because we only have 7 members, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
Do you want me to open the meeting with my group?
Yes, you need a motion to open the public hearing.
Somebody on municipal operations say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Cynthia says yes. Dan?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Thank you for your patience. We are in session.
Okay, I need a motion to open the public hearing for FinCom.
So moved.
So
Second.
moved.
Ed votes yes. Bob?
Yes.
Chet?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
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 Ben?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
John Anzavino?
Yes.
the John Rock?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Elliot?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Enoch? Still not here. Okay.
Enoch
We
will
are-
be in later, though. I just
You'll be in
talked.
later?
Yeah, he'll be in a little
Okay.
bit later.
All right, we are open. Let's start with one of the easy ones, Article 15, Supplemental Fiscal Year 2021 Department Budgets. Mr. Rowe, do we have anything for fiscal 21 for supplemental?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Bill Rowe, Town Accountant. Nothing as yet, no.
All right. So as of tonight, there will be no supplemental requests for FY 21. All right, does anybody on municipal ops, Ms. Walsh, have any questions about that?
Anyone have questions? Appears not, Mr. Chair.
Anybody on FinCom have questions about zero? Okay, we're moving on. All right, let's do Article 24. The Conservation Commission regarding lake management for $66,000.
All right, Mr. Chairman,
Coughlin here tonight?
I think that's me, Mr. Chairman.
Is that you? Okay.
Yep. How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good, very good. This is just our annual article that we have every year for the lake management program. The difference between this and why it's a little higher than you see most years is because it's been 5 years since Ames Pond has received the sonar treatment, which is a different treatment than the normal maintenance treatments that all the ponds go through. That's the one that kills the milfoil, water milfoil weed, and it involves manual labor and physical placement of tablets throughout the pond. So that's the additional cost from the normal years. You'll see that every 5 years or so. Other than that, normally these articles are in the range of 30 to 35,000. I think, were the previous articles. The extra cost is for that.
Yeah, it's looking good up there. I drove by the other day. It's nice and clear.
Yeah.
You can see the water now.
Every community doesn't have the turnout that we do. We're lucky and good at the same time, I guess. So.
Yeah. Okay, just one question on this. We were discussing whether we're gonna use the Conservation Commission revolving fund for $36,000 to fund part of this. Any answer to that question?
I've never had that question asked to me, so I don't have an answer for you.
I'll
ask it now.
If I could, sorry, Mark, this was one of those passing in the halls with JC. I did have JC looking into that. I just have not gotten an answer back from him.
When do you think we might know?
I'll look. Go ahead, Mark.
I would think that it would have to be something that his commission takes up on one of their agendas and votes on.
Well, Mark, what we had posed as a question was to find out what conservation had planned as far as that fund, because we know they can only spend 50, and there's not a heck of a lot of cash available. So if they're looking to pass this article, that's what we're going to be looking for, is some money coming out of that revolving fund, just so you have the background to where we were.
No, I appreciate that. I'll also piggyback what Robin asked JC, and if it has to go in front of his Conservation Commission, it'll be hopefully on their next agenda, which is next week. So we could get an answer for you then. If it's something that staff can determine without a commission vote, we'll have it to you sooner.
We need a vote for that. It's not their money. Anyways, all right.
Can I
well,
say something, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Through you to Mr. Tisdale. That money isn't voted money. That money goes in. It's revolving. That's not a vote of their board to allow it to go anywhere. That money is, they can use it and they can't go over the limit that was set, but that money isn't voted money by them. They take in the fines and the fees and stuff. They don't vote each and every individual fee into that account. So I don't think it's anything that management has to go to them for. I think you just make a knockdown decision to take 36 out and make things easy on the town. Otherwise, I can see this thing croaking at town meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally in favor of not putting it on the town taxpayer if we can take it out of the revolving account. If Mr. Rowe is on, is that something is that a staff decision? I know there's one of those accounts, maybe it's the bylaw account, requires a commission vote. They have two accounts where they collect money.
The Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over that fund, so they need to vote it out.
This is the revolving fund we're talking about, not the bylaw,
Right.
right?
The revolving fund, yes, yes,
Okay.
yep.
This
And
has
I
sort of
believe they
been
have a limit of 50,000.
this
I
has
would
been
think
an
it's-
go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I would think as long as the finance committee is sort of recommending that, and, you know, everybody knows that the type of year we're going through, you know, I'll talk to JC and I'll even attend the Conservation Commission hearing and try to push for that. So I just can't answer that if I can't physically take the money out myself. So.
Mr. Chairman?
We'll look, yep, good, Mr. O.
Yeah, obviously it's in the, it's with the prerogative of the FinCom to short the appropriation if they wanted to. In other words, they can move to, you know, vote 35 or 30 and, or whatever, 40,000. And that would be it. They have the 40,000 in the article.
You know, we're trying to do something good here.
Yeah.
Right.
And I agree. I mean, I'm not a fan of having, I think revolving accounts are used too often. And I think sometimes they become a way to hold taxpayer money and have sort of undocumented, well, they're documented expenditures, but expenditures that sort of fall off the radar of the budget. So I agree, but in fairness to conservation, if they had some specific plan to use that money, because we should not be sitting on taxpayer money, then, yeah. So.
Well, we gotta be done next Wednesday or Thursday, so we need an answer, by next Wednesday.
I think I'm on again next Thursday, right, Mr. Mullen?
Yes, you are, Mark.
Okay.
That's correct.
So I could definitely get you the answer, hopefully by your next Wednesday or Thursday meeting, whatever one.
Because this article has to be paid with cash. We can't borrow for this one, so. And we have 30 left over in free cash, and we want the 36 to get the 66, so. Whatever they need to do, we would appreciate some cooperation.
I know their next meeting is on default next Thursday, so if there is a formal vote, that would have to occur, but hopefully I can just talk to JC and have him discuss with his chairman and see what the initial thoughts and feelings are. You know, I can't see this being an issue, but I just don't want to overstate something just yet.
Okay. All right, so that's pretty much, that article. Ms. Walsh, does anybody in municipal ops have any questions about the lake management article?
Anyone? It doesn't appear so, Mr. Chair.
All right. Does anybody on FinCom have any questions about the lake management article?
Yeah, Ed, I just had a quick question. Mark, if this is approved, when would this take place?
The use of the funds,
Yeah.
it would be within the next fiscal year. So when you start doing these things, depending on the type of weed, I don't want to call it a weed, but that's the untechnical way of referring to these plants. But, you know, the vegetation.
There you go.
There you go.
Am I turning red? Yeah. They work off
eutrophic
last year's article to
vegetation.
fund the vegetation that needs to be controlled in the spring, because obviously town meeting doesn't occur till after that.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Would that be undocumented plants?
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that's a joke. If it is a joke, yes.
Phragmites.
Yeah.
Anybody else on FinCom have a question? Does anybody from the public have a question on Article 24, Conservation and Lake Management? Does anybody from the public have a question on Article 15, the supplemental budget of 0? Okay. So we will move on to Article 28, the Park Street Sewer Betterment.
Okay. Leave that to me too. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Vaughn, turn them on.
All set.
Thank you, Vaughn. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Sorry, my computer's glitching right now. Hold on. All right. All right. So this is the Park Street Sewer Betterment article. This is the technical language, which is as printed in the warrant. I'll get into what that means in a second. As you know, a little background, at the town meeting last year, the town approved 7.5 million for the construction of phase 1 of the Park Street Sewer Project. With the understanding that 75% of the net construction cost would be paid for by the town and 25% of the net cost would be paid for with the issuance of betterments to the properties in the project. That's also what the selectmen voted on prior to town meeting. The purpose of this article is just two basic points of this article. One was we promised town meeting in the residents in the project area that we would try to make betterments as cheap as possible if an opportunity came up. And with a town meeting vote, there's already a special act that authorizes the town to issue a 2% above the town's borrowing rate for the interest. So right now, if this article didn't get voted in, the statute requires 5%. But since the interest rates are very cheap, and actually historically cheap right now, according to Bill Rowe, they're around 1.5% for a project like this currently. The net interest rate would be the 2% plus the percentage and a half, so 3.5% as compared to the 5%. Over 20 years, which most people pay their betterments, it saves a normal resident, a single-family house betterment of over $1,000. The second part of this article addresses the article last year from town meeting actually was written up with the word betterments in it, with the intent of the 25% of the total project cost, but the motion did not have that listed in it. So in case there is a legal issue with issuing betterments, this is to clarify that legal issue with the motion. The motion did not have the word betterment in it. So we have inserted that language into this article. So you got two things. One is the borrowing rate, the interest borrowing rate, 2% above the town's borrowing rate, whatever that is at the time we start borrowing. And the second part is to have the legal part of it, the vote to include the word betterment as it was presented to town meeting last year, as it was shown at the town meeting presentation, as it was voted by the selectmen. So there's nothing new here. It's just to clarify what the motion should have had in it last year. This is just a chart, just a simple chart to show you how the betterments would compare. Probably the most important column would be a residential single-family dwelling. If you paid your betterment up front with no interest, and at the time we created this slide, we had a guaranteed 2.5 million from the Mass Works grant we received this year. The betterment would be $5,300, $53.88. With the 2%, with this new proposal, the 2% above a 1.5% borrowing rate, with a net interest rate of 3.5% with the grants, you would have a 75.82 betterment over 20 years. That's with the interest included. If this article was not here or presented or didn't pass, we would issue the 5% interest rate, and that would equate to 86.46 over the 20 years. So like I previously mentioned, it saves the resident over $1,000 over 20 years. Next steps, again, I was being cognizant. I didn't want to change the presentation or the information in front of you as it was sent to you a month ago. So, but execute the MassWorks grant that we have. We've already done that. That's 2.5 million. We already have the signed contract. We've actually already submitted our first quarterly report. We're awaiting an EDA grant at the time. We were estimating somewhere around $2 to $3 million. That's what people were telling us, different agencies and things like that. Then we finished the design documents, the bid documents. That's pretty much done as we speak today. The select board voted to bond the project last week and bid the project. The bidding will happen later in April, middle of April, plus or minus. Town meeting for this article is in May, and construction will begin around July. It could be July or August. Recent updates, again, this was not given to you. I just given you this for informational purposes and updates for the project. Now that we've fine-tuned the design, we've done all the borings for the ledge. We've fine-tuned the design, and now we're able to narrow the contingency down from the 20%, which was presented at town meeting last year, to the 10%, and that reduces the estimated construction cost from 7.3 million down to about 6.8 million, which is a current cost reduction of about $561,000. Again, when we go to bid, that will tell us the real numbers. The grants since we last prepared this, we just got notified of MassWorks, but now we have the contract executed for $2.5 million. And then we got the EDA, we got a preliminary award letter from EDA. We don't have the contract squared away just yet. And that came in at $350,000. So the total amount of grants is $2.85 million for the construction article. This chart, sorry for the small text, but I'll summarize it. The chart at the top was what was exactly presented to town meeting last year. Last year, sorry, when it got approved. Losing track. 2020 made me lose track here. It was the chart was based, the betterment chart was based on $7.5 million in construction costs and $2.2 million in grants. That's what we assumed at that time we would get. And the residential single family betterment at that time, if you did not, fund it over 20 years with interest, would be $59.30. So since last year's town meeting, we actually got $2.85 million in grants, which is $850,000 more than we presented in the betterment chart at town meeting. And the construction cost is down in the amount that we just explained, from 7.5 to 6.8. So now the betterment, instead of 59.30, which we presented at town meeting last year, it's now at 42.56 due to the extra grants and the refined construction cost. And that's it for the presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that Dave has a question.
Well, hold on, let's let municipal ops go first. Ms. Walsh, anybody from your committee have any questions?
Any members with a question? It doesn't appear so, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Laurie, you're up.
Thank you very much, Ed. Appreciate it. Through you to Ms. Mark Tisdale. Mark, could you help me out with that last slide? The one, it was a little bit of an eye chart. It looks like it's got important information here, but I want to make sure I can really see what you're talking about, because you seem to have columns in here that don't really matter, like these no grant columns. Why are they even there? Because we do have grants. So why is there?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you remember, at town meeting last year, we didn't have any grants. So I just wanted to compare the two charts, with similar columns. The chart on top had no grants because the project wasn't approved at town meeting.
Okay, maybe a different question would be, why are we being shown this slide if we already passed this in town meeting?
Well, the whole article has to do with betterment. So what we were trying, the chart on the bottom also shows you the betterments calculated with the 2% above the 1.5% loan rate, which I probably should have mentioned. I apologize for that, Dave. So you had a great question.
Well, I'm just saying, wouldn't it be more interesting if that's the only information that was on the slide? Because then it would be blown up big so we can read it. Because to me, I look at the slide, I can't understand it because it's got a lot of irrelevant information to me anyway. Because the article is what is it, 9 months ago that we passed this thing.
Hey, he's an engineer. He likes information.
I know. I hate information.
Well, you know what? I learned a long time ago, sometimes less is better, but I probably put more on this than I should have. I was just
Well,
trying to,
well, we can't do anything about the past because it's past is done, but
Yeah.
we're looking forward, and you really just want to show us, you know,
Yeah.
what's
take
what's
out the
the
no grants
impact,
clause.
what's the impact of your grants? I think that's the purpose of the slide, right?
you're right on point, Mr. Lurie. So just to summarize that, the best way to look at these two charts and the most important information to take away from this would be under the column to the far right, betterment paid upfront, no interest, right? Some people would choose to do that. At town meeting, we approved last year, 2 million we assumed 2 million in grants. The betterment would have been 5930. With the 2.85 million in grants, it is now 4,256. So it drops down substantially with.
Well, you would say that multifamily residential saved $3,000 and residential single saved, what is it? What is that?
17-ish.
1,700. That's really what it means. You just have to show, yeah, if you're a single family, you save $1,700. If you're a residential multifamily, you save 3,000, whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's all that really matters, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you know, it's only because we already passed it that I think all we really need to see is how much did we save because of the 2.85 million.
All right, let's get away from this slide then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the message. That's really what you're trying to get to here, right?
Yeah, no, I think that you made a good point. I apologize for confusing anybody if I did.
Oh, I mean, I didn't. You did a
Take
good
out the
job
top
with
ones.
it. It wasn't that you. It's a good job. It's just that to convey it to us is also something that PowerPoints are not very good unless you really have very little to show. You know.
So if I went back to the one you got submitted in your packet, the
I
big
just
chart
take the
I have
top,
here, the first one, the last 3 slides in this you don't have in your packet because they were just recent updates because we got the new grant for 350. This was in your packet. This is probably more what you're talking about, Dave. It really summarizes the difference in betterments, but it only has $2.5 million in grants when we currently have 2.85.
Right. Right.
Updated.
But at the end of the day, since it was already passed, you just have to show us how much we saved. I mean, that's really all we care, I think, because we're not, unless we're revisiting the article. I don't think you're here to tell us that you're revisiting it.
No. The whole point of this was to show you what the betterment is with the 2% above the town's borrowing rate.
Okay.
So by doing that, it's 7582 with $2.5 million in grants. And if we don't have that, it's 8646. So I guess those 2 boxes are the most important.
All right. Okay.
If I could also add, and it's not directly relevant, so Dave, I know you don't want more information, but I'm going to give you more. Just as an FYI, this is about interest, and this is why this article's here. But as Mr. Trumpio knows, we were discussing with the board last night, and the board voted to support the revisit in April. The fact that not to confuse things, but the 2.85 million that's coming from the American Rescue Act, we made a recommendation to the board as staff that we have about 1.85 million slated to go toward this sewer project, as well as capital sewer projects are directly allowed. It's just a bit of a timing game on when we're going to get that money. But when we look at the total cost of this project, we may drop off another 1.85 million. And I haven't even had a chance to share that all with Mark today, as I was tied up all day in hearings. So I did present that to the board. They voted to support that. And Mr. Tronfio and I had a conversation today, and I know he was going to bring that up to you all tonight. But I think it's important to note when we look at these numbers, for the public looking at these numbers generally, it may be even lower than.
Does that grant, through you, Ed, to the
Yep.
town manager, does that mean they've given parameters on the money that allow you to carve up the money? Do you get to carve it up how you see fit, or do you get to carve it up based on, hey, infrastructure is, 5%, COVID 50%? Like how do they carve it up?
They determine what they believe are COVID-related potential costs that we have incurred. The changes in sewer use, improved sewer systems and whatnot, they actually connect into this as a capital project that they feel directly supports what they want the money to go to. And so it's capital project, specifically sewer, is listed. But how we distribute that money or parse that out within the municipal side is within our purview as a town. Now, when we had the CARES money come in FEMA, it was pretty much geared toward day-to-day costs, overtime, things like that. We use that on the administrative side as staff. We made those determinations. Because this one is sort of broader and more of a philosophic dispersal of the money, I brought it to the board with a suggestion of, I don't want to get too far off track here, but about 700,000 for return to stabilization, 300,000 for some day-to-day costs, as the fire chief has requested, and the other 1.85 toward the sewer capital project, because we know it's a project that is ready to go. We likely will have no issues with using it for that because they specifically reference sewer projects, and the fact that this sewer project is geared up and ready to go will make it even more appealing. Sue Herman works directly with the federal agencies on this, and she's monitoring it closely, and this recommendation was made with her support as well, and her belief that these are all applicable.
Right, so could you help me understand then, since you have that much discretion over where portions of the money go, because it's a wide array of things you can do, who actually authorizes which fund gets how much? Like where does that authorization happen?
Well, it's never really this is sort of new territory on federal grant money. Sometimes, where it's CARES money, it became a staff issue. In this case, because it can be used to offset lost revenues, which is how we're just in our case, we're using that as our stabilization, because we use stabilization to offset directly lost revenues. Sue's putting in a request to ensure that that is a compliant use. I think basically what happens is it becomes a policy that the board forwards, and I don't know who has the jurisdiction. I guess that would be a legal opinion, but the board last night voted to support the town's recommendation, the staff's recommendation of that dispersal. And that's what we're requesting. But realistically, I think the town, the staff would have the right to say, okay, I need a lot of money to supplement PPPs.
Right, so it could be the board, it could be you, it could be town meeting, but you don't,
exactly.
You don't know which.
I don't know which. I'm likely to think it's the board and FinCom in some ways, because this really is about what you all do with stabilization money, but that usually is done in conjunction with the board. I brought it to the board because I just didn't feel it was appropriate for staff to make that call. I brought it to the board with a recommendation, but the board did vote to move forward on it. I believe Mr. Cavey may be on, and I know that the recommendation was to move it forward and then also to have it revisited April 20th, understanding that there will be potentially at least one new board member, and they did want that person, whoever was on or to be able to review it as well. But to at least move forward with it, so we would have something for you all to work with tonight, the board supported our recommendation. So that as you're planning your budget.
Right, so the town auditor is going through with a fine tooth comb all the ins and outs, and the decision and the use of the money comes when? When does?
So the money,
let's say she had it figured out by tomorrow.
Yeah, the first half comes in June, and the second half comes a year later, and it all has to be used by 2024, I believe.
It's half and half, 50%, 50%.
Yeah, and so that's where that's why I didn't want to confuse this too much. You need to be aware that it's out there, but I don't know exactly what the timing on the funding is and how that will impact our borrowing.
No, you've been very clear, so I appreciate it. No, I think we're good. All right, thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
Anybody else on FinCom have a question on Park Street sewer betterments?
Yeah, I do. I had my hand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Rock.
Yeah, okay. Mark, thanks a lot. I think you and the team have done an excellent job. I think the PowerPoint was good. Maybe it's too long, but I think it's important to show what's happened since the last town meeting until this town meeting. So, show what the last town meeting voted, what the grants are. And the whole purpose of this article is to get to the middle column here, 2% above 1.5, correct?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, and to authorize the betterment.
And to authorize the betterment, right. Those two simple
That's right.
points. Yep.
Right. So it's important to show, you know, if if that article didn't pass, what the case would be. So, at any rate, you know, I think you've done an excellent job. I congratulate you and the team. And keep going for those grants. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think Elliot has his hand up, John Anzavino has his hand up, Joel has his hand up,
All right, Elliot, John,
Joel,
and
Rob.
Joel,
Oh, I'm
All right.
sorry, I'm done.
Scott too? Okay. All right, Elliot,
John,
go
you
ahead.
go next.
All right, thank you. This may be probably directed to the wrong person, but I'm gonna say this. I don't think the town should be charging 2% over what they're paying for the 1.5% loan rate. Now, or at least that 2% should not apply to the single family homes, but perhaps the multifamily, definitely the commercial, retail, and warehouse. It's not a huge amount, but for a single family and a low value property or a single person, that's a lot of money. That 2,000 odd dollars. So just a statement. I know that Mark Tisdale is not the one to determine these things, but it's just my feeling that 2% should not be charged to the residential single family and probably not the multifamily.
I can just add a little bit to that, if that's okay. I know on these betterments, it's the way they're issued, they have to be uniform across the board in some fashion. So the way we increase the betterment, well, I don't say increase, but the way the betterment policy was written up was based on flow, and actually, if I want to say 72% of the whole cost is actually going to be paid for by commercial and industrial properties. Only 25% of the cost is paid for by the residential properties. But the interest rate has to be applied across the board uniformly.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I said my piece. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Anzavino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'll just say that, you know, Mark, I can understand why you presented it the way you did, because different people have different views. I think it's good to see, well, this is what you voted before, and this is where we're going now, so you can see it right in front of you. You don't have to go digging through last year's. So you did have this in the packet as it was, so you saw the final. But having the other comparison was, in my mind, is a good thing. So you can see where you were and where you're going. Here's my concern with this, and I know the board has already voted. Actually, I'm a little upset that this was not presented properly at the town meeting where it was voted, because that's something, in my opinion, that should have been picked up when they were putting the proposal together as far as the motions and so forth. But that's going off into a whole nother area that I've been a little disappointed in as far as how we're getting these motions done, and they just seem to be missing things. Secondly, yes, they voted to do this as a 25% betterment assessment, which means the town is picking up, all the residents are picking up 75% of the cost, as far as that goes. And I've been a little disappointed in some recent developments where, if my memory serves me, when we were being talked to about this, one of the real pushes behind it was, especially down in that Campanelli, they could not expand because with the septic systems, the property just wouldn't take the add-ons, because you obviously had it for the septic. And with the sewer coming in, that would be a good thing, because then if they get rid of the septic, they'd have more room to expand. And the property that is underway now, that Schulman property, during the June 30th, they got up, the owner of that property got up and said that that septic system was failing. We have it on video. And yet, not long ago at a planning board meeting, they were pushing to get some plans approved, and they were asked point blank, well, what happens if your schedule doesn't match up with the sewer schedule? And they said, that doesn't matter. We can do this without the sewer. That septic system is good for 9,000 gallons, and they're only pumping 25 now. Well, last June, they were telling us it was failing. So I guess the bottom line here is I feel like I've been lied to by somebody on the benefits of putting this thing in and so forth. And it really, you know, as you can tell, it kind of gets me upset that we see these things now, and it doesn't seem to really jive with what was done when it was proposed. And then to boot, they come in with a TIF agreement that saved them a whole bunch of more money. Yet the townspeople are gonna pick up 75% of this. And that goes to what was presented to the board last night. First, you know, putting 700 back in the stabilization is great. I still would have liked to have seen it pushed to see if we could have got all the money back that we took out. I don't care if it was for the overlay. That's still kind of a loss of revenue, if you will, because the only reason the overlay would be getting abatements would be based on their values and all that, and that's loss of revenue. So I was disappointed that we weren't getting all the money back into the stabilization. And it kind of concerned me that, yes, the project is there, but are there other things this could have been used for that would help the taxpayers overall? And rather than just one particular project, which I know is being picked up, you know, a lot of the funding is being picked up by the whole town anyways, the taxpayers. But I just think that if there was that much money, would there be other things that could be used that might give some relief to the taxpayers in other places? And maybe the select board should have been looking at more than a 25% betterment when you start looking at everything that's transpired. Because I just think that the people have been misled by this process, the way you're hearing it now, the way you were hearing it then. And that, like I said, that video is out there. That's the owner of the property that actually said the septic system was failing, and that company would probably have to move, and most likely move out of town if you know, because they had to expand. And basically that was a bunch of BS, because the other night at the planning board, they're in there pushing to get this project approved, to get this expansion going, and they actually responded, no problem, we don't need the sewer. We could do it with the septic system because we're only running at almost 25% capacity. So I was just wondering, can anybody explain the differences between when they were looking for it to get passed and where we are today?
If I could chip in, John, because you know what, you brought up a valid point, because I heard the same thing after the planning board meeting. I'm like, this is very odd. So apparently that was the applicant, the owner's engineer who made that statement to the planning board. And I said, well, your septic system was built in 1998, and you said you pump it 2 to 4 times a year to the owner. He's like, absolutely. I said, well, your engineer said it was okay the way it is now to take the flow on. He's like, no. He's like, I'm pumping it 2 to 4 times a year, which it's okay now, but it's not going to last me. And if I have to put it on my property, I'm going to put it I would have to put it in the parking lot and lose parking spaces, and the whole system would be raised. And he wouldn't be able to keep it in the same spot because it's actually in the N-Grid easement right now. The Eversource or N-Grid easement, correct me if I'm misspoken on the easement name.
Could be either or around this town.
Yeah, and they won't allow you to put a new, you know, when that septic system fails, you will not be able to put a new septic system within their easement. So I was also in awe about that, because I also have 4 other signed commitment letters from other people as part of that EDA grant. I had to get literally signed forms from at least a handful of people. Like this isn't like a wish-washy thing where it'd be nice to have sewer. They had to prove that the sewer was going to benefit the properties and how the properties would expand. So they actually came up with specs and the jobs created and signed forms. And he was one of them. So so he was a little in awe how his engineer responded to that comment at the planning board meeting. So I think it needs to be clarified that yes, it's functional today, but 2 or 3 years from now, it will not be. And when they have to replace it, it's a big problem.
Sure. All right. And because that would have obviously been the outcrop from the questioning was, well, we filled out forms for grants and everything, and I'm sure part of that had to do with the financials. And you know, the way this guy was presenting me a couple of weeks ago there or whatever to the planning board was, you know, a 180 from what was presented last June. And that was the owner of the building, I think, that was talking, that said the system was failing. So needless to say, when you hear these things and you still have a little bit of memory going, you know, I'm getting old and I might be losing some of it, but you know, that rings out, and it makes you really wonder what's really going on behind here.
Yeah. All right. All set, I gotta move on to some other people. Okay,
Chairman, I
Joel,
believe Joel has a question, Ben has a question.
Joel, go ahead.
Thanks, Ed. Mark, as you know, when we work together on other projects over time, I'm more of an above the ground guy than a below the ground guy, so pardon me if I ask this technical question. When you're putting in the main sewer line down Park Street, does the entire main line have to go in and be tested before you can make any connections? Or can you make connections as you're putting in the line?
Absolutely has to be tested. Yep.
So they can't make any connections until the entire line is installed and tested?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mark. Congratulations again on this project moving forward. I'm so happy about that, and that so happy to speak previously about the importance of this project at town meeting. I just had a quick question just to remind me, my brain is not working as well. The betterments are paid over 20 years. Is that accurate, Mr. Tisdale?
Correct.
And thank you. And then I just want to echo the latter half of what I believe Mr. Anzavino was saying with regards to the investment of the American recovery dollars in this project. I think it's an enormous success that we won the MassWorks grant due to Mr. Tisdale and the team's hard work, and hopefully an EDA grant. I am concerned, however, about investing dollars for the results of a COVID-19 pandemic that has been detrimental for the town, capital T, as well as all the population within it, investing those dollars specifically for the sewer project, just given that the effects, both public safety, public health, et cetera, of COVID-19 have been so significant for our population. And I hope that the Board of Selectmen and the town just think, like Mr. Anzavino is recommending, I believe, about other sort of ways to invest those dollars, whether it is improving investments in public safety or emergency medical services or public health, or even saving for the continued rainy day. I'm so happy to hear about the replacement of the 700,000 too. I think that's wonderful. But again, just concerned about further a project that is moving forward, that is extremely well funded, just investing those dollars in that area. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ben. Scott, were you gonna say something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to go through you to Mr. Tisdale on the what Mr. Elliott had to talk about, because that was my question. Why do we have to go to the full 2% instead of like maybe going 1.5?
You could actually petition the legislator to actually go lower than 2%. 2% is already approved through state legislation.
I thought it was the wording was like up to 2% you could go, right?
The wording is actually 2% above the town's borrowing rate, with approval of town meeting. The standard language is 5% without town meeting. That's the standard.
I thought it was said you could go up to 2, like if we're borrowing at 1.5 and we went 1.5, it would give them a little bit of a break. But I do believe that with the way the taxes in this town are distributed, that the residents pay less than with the shift, the commercial and the industrial pay a greater amount. And whereas they are greaterly going to benefit from this, I hope they will by taking advantage of what we're doing for them. Whereas the town's paying 75% of the hook. And those are people who are already on sewer, paying sewer, and paying for it again. I mean, I understand that, but I just think you gotta think of the residents a little bit. This COVID stuff has crushed people, and I just thinking that if everybody thinks it's gonna bounce back and everybody's gonna be making the dollars they were, I don't see it. The job market is not what they're saying, and it's just not there. I just was thinking of the residents that are, and there ain't that many on that group through that area, but you know, we wanted to give it a Campanelli. I'm for that. I'm glad we split it because it would have been a tragedy if we had gone the full route. I hate to tell you that. We would have been drowning. So it's just, I don't know if maybe it's something that has to be looked at later on. I don't know. I just think that the handful of people deserve a little bit of a break. If it's tough enough. If they can pay their regular taxes and pay a little less on a betterment, which is over and above, so be it. You know what I mean? That's all I'm thinking about. Just,
I agree with you, Scott, 100%. And that's why nobody asked me to bring this article forward to you with the 2%. I thought about it myself, saying we promised town meeting we're going to try to make this as affordable for the residents in that area as possible. And you know, a vote at town meeting authorizes us to do 2% above the historically low town's borrowing of 1.5%. So it saves a normal resident over $1,000 over 20 years. That's why I brought this forward, because I know a lot of people are having a hard time these days. So
you know how I feel about what you've done. So you know, I'm not picking at you. I'm just wondering if there was a way we could just pass a little bit more on to them. That's all. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mark, can you explain the first column that you had in that chart said the standard rate by statute is 5%. So if you go the 2% above the 1.5, you're only at 3.5. So it is reducing it from what the statute allows. Could you touch on that? Maybe that would help explain, you know, that you are cutting back from what you had on that first column that said the standard interest rate by statute is a 5% interest rate.
right, that's exactly what it is, John. So most people will choose the option of financing this over 20 years, and they would have, if this article didn't go forward, it would be a 5% interest rate, and that number would equate to $8,600 for a single-family dwelling, $8,646. With this article and the historically low borrowing rates that the town has right now, it would reduce the betterment by over $1,000 over the course of 20 years to $7,582. So you're right. That is some important information that everybody needs to understand. That's why we're here, is to make this as cheap as possible for the resident. And if we didn't have a historically low borrowing rate, it wouldn't be much of a benefit to bring this article forward right now. You don't normally
stick with the 5%.
Exactly right. So, but right now, because of the times, we got a great borrowing rate. Why not bring this forward? You know,
right? Because this locks in for the term of the loan.
Yeah.
So, it's just, you know, I understood the question, and I certainly agree. You know, anything we can do to help the residents with the taxes and so forth. But, you know, looking at that column, I said, well, wait a minute, this said you could go to 5%. So I just wanted to make sure I understood, you know, going to what statute allows, just doing the 2% above what the town is incurring, in this case, it's reducing the interest rate by 1.5% based on what you could be paying by statute, which is 5%. I just wanted to make sure I understood
exactly.
it. You know,
yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I wanna
But
ask,
wait a
Hold
minute,
on, hold on,
that's
hold
all, that's all relevant, Eddie. I'm gonna finish up on mine too. That's all relevant. If the town was borrowing money at 3.7 or 4.1, naturally we'd borrow at 5 from the residents. This is historically low. So what if you try to give them another 0.5% off? Just because it says they're getting a big break. Of course they are. The town's at 1.5. Normally we'd be up around 4. So you'd want to be on the 5. It's all relevant. There's no big tragedy savings here. It's all numbers. And I was just thinking of a handful of the residents. If there was, say, 300 homes affected by this, no, everybody would be on at 2% because when you spread it out, it works better.
yeah,
But when it's choked in like this, people they're gonna toss the coin. Do I pay my taxes or do I eat this week?
on the same topic, if I could just say so, Ed, I'm counting 240 months over 20 years. And that's 7582, that's principal and interest combined, right?
Correct.
So the cost to the single family home is $31.59 a month. If you divided that out by 240 months. So that's the hit that would happen in that scenario.
Okay, anybody else from FinCom have a question?
Yeah, just real quick, Mark, if you haven't presented this to us, can you forward us this PowerPoint?
You have all this information.
Okay.
The slides 7.
7. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on FinCom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions on this.
All right, go ahead, Vaughn.
Why is this article in front of us? Exactly. What's the reason this article's in front of us at this point? We did this last year.
Got screwed up.
Well, the article from last year, the written article, had the word the issuance of betterments in it. The motion that got approved at town meeting, I don't know who writes these things up or whatever, doesn't have the word betterment in it. So right now, if we actually went out to bond the project, the town would be paying 100% of the cost, which was not the intent of what the selectmen voted on, what the town voted on at town meeting. The presentation had that. It's always been the 25%. So this just clarifies that potential legal issue that could occur upon issuing betterments. There's no new information. We haven't changed it. It's the same stuff that was presented at town meeting. And the second part of the article is just the interest rate, 2% above the town's borrowing rate.
But this percentage thing is not the reason the article's in front of us. The reason the article's in front of us is because a betterment part was not included.
Right. There's 2 parts to this article. Right.
Okay. Then how did this get overlooked, I guess, would be my question on this.
I don't know who writes up the motions or reviews those for us. I know the article I wrote up for town meeting had the word betterments in it. It was presented at town meeting with the word betterments. It was voted by selectmen with betterments. Everything was betterments, and that's not something to hide. It's just the motion did not include the word betterment in it. So I can't answer your question, Vaughn.
You can't answer that. Okay. My other question is, if this does not pass, would it be possible for the selectmen to have another bite at the apple, I guess you'd say, maybe change this betterment thing to different rates or whatever? I mean, is that something that's possible? If this one does not pass, let's say people don't like whatever the numbers are here, is it possible the selectmen could redo this and reintroduce it in a different article with?
Yeah, make it 100%.
I think since the selectmen voted on it, it was presented to town meeting. Town meeting voted on the construction article with that information. You would not want to change that information around. The project is going out to construction and it's going to be bid on. So now we're at the point of the issuance of the betterments based on what town meeting voted on. And this just clarifies that intent.
You just said the town meeting didn't vote on the betterment. So that's why I'm asking, if this did not pass, could it get reintroduced?
Town meeting voted with the intent of the betterments being issued, as was presented.
Then why do we have this in front of us?
You vote the motion, Mark.
The motion did not have the word betterment in it.
So
But that's what you vote.
So town
You're
meeting.
correcting an error.
Okay, my question is, so if this does not pass, could the selectmen reintroduce it with, I don't know, again, I guess is the
Yeah.
question.
I don't know how you would reintroduce the betterment portion, which is what we're doing right now.
Okay,
Right.
what if this doesn't pass? What happens then?
The town pays for the entire project.
Which then goes back to my question, could the selectmen reintroduce another betterment article on a special town meeting?
Yeah.
I see the chairman shaking his head yes, but I don't, is that the answer or no?
I guess they could, you know, to answer your question, you could just have an article to do with betterments with different percentages and all that. But that would be, you know, in my opinion, not proper because people voted on an article at town meeting last year with a
They
certain
vote on a, they vote on a motion. They vote the motion.
But the discussion of betterments had been very public at that point. It literally was an oversight somewhere. A word was deleted. Unfortunately, it was an important word. Think it would just create chaos if it doesn't pass and has to be reintroduced, then we'll have to call a special meeting to reintroduce it.
Right. Or kill the project, the hell with it. Town ain't gonna pay 100% to the SOAR fund. We'd be subsidizing it every single year, so I mean, you know.
Was the word betterment in
We're
the
chasing our tails around here. We're getting way outside the scope.
The other thing I'd like to say about this is I agree with the previous speakers about using the federal money toward this because this article was discussed well before COVID. So I mean that's the other half of that. I just had those questions about the betterment and what happens if it doesn't pass and that sort of thing. But nobody really knows how this got overlooked, I guess, and so that's where we are on this. What does the betterments add up to be? The dollars amount, the 25% of whatever. What does that amount equal?
Well, right now the project's at 6.8 million. So 6.8 times 0.25. It's about 1.7 million in betterments for the project.
So that overlook is 1.7 million, I guess is what you're saying. But we can fix it if it passes now. But if it doesn't pass, theoretically speaking, it could get reintroduced. Is that all correct?
The betterment portion could, yep.
Okay, now the other thing is, I think it was mentioned by a previous speaker about the interest over the 1.5 is 2, but I mean, could it get lower than that? Because now you have people who have to pay interest on that, and the town's paying 1.5, and then the people are going to pay 3.5. So is that locked at 2, or could it get lower than that, as the previous speaker had asked?
Right now, the state's legislation allows 2%. It's already approved through state legislation. The town could petition state legislation for any rate they want, like they could petition anything. So you could go for an additional rate below that. Say you wanted 0.5%, 1% above the town's borrowing rate. You could petition the state legislature to do that.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is I'd like to say, I agree with the previous speaker that mentions that when this was presented to town meeting, it was presented as critical for some places, and there were words used in that presentation that are now being completely discussed entirely differently, I guess is probably the best way to put it. That's my concern. I agree with the previous speaker who said that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I might have other questions in future, but I think there might be others. Thank you.
I believe Mr. Tisdale responded to that allegation of a changing or a misrepresentation. Thank you.
I was just saying.
Bunch of hearsay.
Previous speaker, that's all.
All right.
Bunch of hearsay, that motherfucker.
Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, that was not hearsay. That was videotape that's out there. It wasn't hearsay. June 30th of last year, the owner said that it was failing. And at the planning board meeting recently, the owner's engineer or whoever was presented said that system was taking 2,500 gallons and it could take up to 9,000, and the sewer wasn't needed to do the 80,000 square foot expansion. So don't tell me that it's just hearsay. We got the videos that say it. It's not hearsay. Please don't dismiss something that's so blatant.
A clarification, I
that's
did
outside
not
what
say hearsay. I simply pointed out that Mr. Tisdale explained that situation, and that Mr. Tisdale, we all know, himself does not double speak. And he explained where that discrepancy in those testimonies were, and the fact that he asked about it as well.
I understand that. but I just heard my chairman
make a
say that
point?
it was hearsay.
Ed, can I
Well,
make
there's
a
a
point?
difference of opinion, it's conjecture, so we'll
Ladies
leave
and
it at that.
gentlemen, this is the town moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, let's treat with each other with respect. There's no need to holler and scream at each other, so, and it's also on TV, so please, everybody remain calm, ask your questions, and please move on. Thank you.
Point of privilege, Mr. Chairman.
Ed,
We're getting outside what?
I have a point of privilege. Can we just remind folks who are members of the public to mute their phones? I heard one particular gentleman who I think used the word hearsay, who is a member of the public, at least for the purposes of this meeting. So if we could just, I don't know if the secretary, everybody who's not speaking, especially those who are members of the public, not of the committees that are hearing this article, could please mute.
So, Ed? Ed?
Hello, my back? Yeah. Who's that, John?
Yeah, just I want to say briefly, you know, nobody from the town side, Mark or town manager, misrepresented anything. You know, yeah, maybe the owner of the business misrepresented something or is confused. But this whole project was well debated and well presented and voted on, and you know, I don't see the point of revisiting all of that. So that's my statement on that.
All right, anybody else from FinCom have a question? All right, does anybody from the public have a question on the Park Street sewer betterment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do. Mark Semanian, 5 Low Avenue. Through you to Mr. Tisdale, trying to figure out a couple of things here. The project is a $6.8 million project. We got $2.85 million in grant money, correct?
Yes, correct.
So that brings it to 3.95 million. With the additional 1.85 in American Recovery money, brings the number down, if my math is correct, to 2.1 million. Do we have what the cash payout on that for the 25% betterment would be?
I don't have it in front of me, Mark, but I do have it on a pretty detailed spreadsheet back at the office.
Okay. Is that something you could get to the town meeting representatives in a pretty quick time so that we can vote in an appropriate fashion?
So you're looking for, with the grants applied, what the total cost of betterments would be?
With the grants and the federal recovery money that was mentioned last night at the select board meeting, I'm not even sure, I don't believe Finance Committee has had an opportunity to weigh in on that yet, but presuming they would be in support of that, I'd like to know what, you know, the upfront cost and the 3.5 interest rate cost would be for a residential single family if the overall cost of the project was reduced to the $2.1 million, which it would if we put the 185 into it from the American Recovery. You got me?
Yep.
Okay, that would be great. Secondly, seeing as how the taxpayer is absorbing 75% of this sandwich, am I to presume that the interest rate of 1.5% will be applied to that amount of money, that 75% that the overall town is paying for the sewer project? Or are we also going to get hit with 3.5%?
Right now, I've had a recent conversation with Bill Rowe. The borrowing rates are around 1.5%. That's what we use for our analysis. It could be at 2 when we go out to borrow. I'm using 1.5 for this analysis because we haven't gone out to borrow yet.
Sure, and I understand that, Mark, but I guess my maybe to rephrase the question, whatever the town is borrowing the money at, whether it be 1.5 or 2%, am I to presume that the 75% of us who are paying for this project for another area will only be paying that 1.5 or 2%? In other words, there's not going to be additional funding put onto that in interest. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the town's borrowing rate, right?
Right. Okay. I just wanted to verify that because it's there's a lot of information here.
I think a point of information here. The taxpayers of the town are not paying for this project. The SOAR fund is paying for the project. And if the SOAR fund has a negative, then the general fund will have to cover it.
Which would
But
be
it's
the
starting with the
taxpayers,
SOAR
wouldn't
fund.
it, Mr. Chairman?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Ultimately, I understand, Mr. Chairman, what you're saying, but it's still my tax-paying money that funds the enterprise fund. So
Only
ultimately,
if you're on the SOAR.
yeah, absolutely. But again, I am on sewer, so it's my tax money paying that enterprise fund. One last, and this is, it's related to this because it was brought up earlier, but through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mark Tisdale, can you please ensure that the planning board receives the information that you spoke about tonight about the septic over there and the need for Schuman Ave to connect in? I think that's important. I don't know how it'll affect that project, but you know, as a previous speaker said, I have 2 videos directly conflicting on this situation. So I think it's very important, whereas, you know, Schuman Street is coming to the end of their site plan approval, that we have correct information there. And I thank you for that, Mark, in advance.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak. Ed, you're muted.
Anybody else from the public have a comment? All right, hearing none, we're moving on.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add something? There was just a discussion that it's not being paid by taxpayers unless they're on the sewer. That's what was stated. But because that fund is subsidized at this point, that is partly funded by the taxpayers. That's just how the subsidy works.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, just to be blunt, I did not accuse Mr. Tisdale or anybody else on staff of misleading us. I was very clear that it was a video with the owner last June and whoever was presenting to the planning board that were 180 degrees out of sync. I never said it was Mark or staff. I've known Mark for many years, and I think he knows I hold him in a high enough regard with his position that I would have talked to him directly if I thought he was trying to pull the wool over our eyes. And so I just want to be clear with that where Mark is still here, I want him to understand that as well. I hope he didn't take it that way, but I certainly didn't raise any issue with Mark or anyone else at town staff saying it was misleading, because he was using the same information these people were giving us as well. And that's why I was concerned, because I'm sure they were filling out paperwork for these grants and so forth based on financials that they assumed to be valid based on what the owners were telling them then. And it seemed to be off now. So if Mark took it that way, certainly I would apologize, but I mentioned no names for him or staff as being misleading in this effort. And I just want to be perfectly clear with that.
I certainly did not take it that way at all. And, you know, I've before I worked in a previous life, it seems like a long time ago, I've designed over hundreds of septic systems and stamped plans of my stamp for them. I know this all makes sense to me, and sometimes it's hard to portray to the public that if you have a sewer pipe, it opens up opportunities on your property for development. It's just night and day. This is not a political thing. This is an engineering thing. So I can prove that in 10 different ways. And I did that at town meeting last year. I had different scenarios that I presented. So to me, this makes perfect sense. This property, I can't believe, was discussed like that at the planning board meeting, because their septic system currently resides in an easement in Ingrid, and it's currently being pumped from what the owner has told me 2 to 4 times a year, which means it's on the end of its useful life, which means they're gonna have to replace that, put it on their property, and probably spend $500,000 to $1 million to upgrade that system, and they're gonna probably lose parking and access on their properties. This is an engineering thing. So I certainly didn't take it negatively, and I'm just in awe that that comment was made at the planning board meeting as much as everybody else's.
And I appreciated your explanation that it surprised you as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mark. I'm glad you didn't take it that way.
Hey, excuse me, Ed, I have a question came to my head after listening to a previous speaker from the general public. I just want to understand about how the public has a choice of taking the loan versus the paid up front. So are we literally sending out a choice to people where they could save money by paying up front? Or do we automatically just charge everybody on their enterprise charges in the amount of the loan over 20 years?
When you issue the betterment through the treasurer's office, there's an option of paying it up front, and there's no interest applied. So they do have that option.
Individually, every home will have that option.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Eddie?
All right.
Ed?
Yep. Go ahead, Scott.
Just through you to Mr. Tisdale. If they're pumping that thing 2 to 4 times a year, when does automatic fail enter into the zone?
Typically, to answer your question, when you have consistently over 4 times a year,
yeah,
it's an automatic failure by the state Title V environmental code. So that's why I said it's on the end of its useful life.
Yeah. They're ready to be shut.
And it was built in 1998 in an area with poor soils and some ledge conditions.
Oh yeah.
So that thing's like you nailed it. It's ready to die. So for them to make that statement was just like very shocking to me.
Thank you, Eddie.
Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, I think Elliot has another question. His hand is up. He forgot to put his hand down.
No, it's up. Thank you.
Okay, Elliot, go ahead.
Just a quick question to Bill Rowe. When the bills are sent out for the betterment and all, that's sent out, if for instance, I get a bill for and it says, if you pay up front, it's 5,000. If you want to make one payment, it's X amount. So do people have the option of like doing a time payment, the 20 thing, and then they come in, they win the mass lottery and say, let's pay the whole thing? How can that be done, or what? Is it either or can you go halfway between?
Usually you make one payoff amount. Like for example, if your property was sold, the new buyer, new lender would want the betterment to be paid off. I'm not sure if you can make partial payments or not. That's a question for the treasurer collector. I haven't really seen that. I don't know. They may have that, but usually you make the payment that's assessed on your tax bill each year, and then if you wanted to pay it off in full, you could pay it off in full at any time.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like when you get your credit card bill, you got a choice of paying $27 or you pay the whole thing. Next month, you still have that option of paying the minimum or the whole thing. So that seems reasonable. Thank you for maybe a clarification of that.
No problem.
All right, let's move on. Let's do Article 20, Town Building Facilities Maintenance Upgrades. We have 2 items, the dog pound roof and the Cedar Hill Clubhouse roof. One's 18,000, one's 50,000 for a total of 68,000. Who would like to speak to this one?
I can if you want, Mr. Chairman. This is Paul Japoon.
Go ahead, Paul.
Can we have Mark stop his screen sharing for Park Street?
Yep, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mark.
all set. I think it's pretty cut and dry. New roofs for each of these locations. Strip the old roofs and reinstall. And then there's minimal mechanical, electrical, MEP stuff, minimal at the dog pound. Like less than $5,000 worth of items.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Walsh, does anybody from Municipal Ops have questions?
I did it. Anyone on municipal operations? I have a question. I was trying to multitask and obviously I failed. So the dog pound roof is how much?
18,000.
Oh, as printed. And the clubhouse is 50?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your committee's all set? All right, FinCom, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Jess has a question.
Okay, Jess, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I noticed on some of the supplemental information on this one, it said that regular maintenance was recommended, but no significant investments in the building were recommended. I think this is for the animal control building. And so I guess my question is there a plan to just rebuild this building as opposed to be putting money and spending on new roofs and other things like that? What do you think, Mr. Jaffoon?
Yep, thanks, Jess. I think what you saw was a report from 2010. So that's now 11 years old. So now it's time to do the roof. As for rebuilding the building, that's not in the cards right now.
Yeah, I guess that was part of my concern, is that the report was from 2010 and it said at that time no investment should be made in the building. It's not in the cards, but you know, I haven't been to that particular structure. I'm just curious about, you know, how bad it is, and are we looking at like pouring money into a completely failing building at this point?
No, but if we don't do the roof, we are in years to come. It's a CMU building, and it's very small. It's in the good bones, I guess people like to say. We just need a roof for now and some minor mechanical stuff. That's it. But we'll
okay. So the structure itself is sound. It's just it just needs some upgrades.
Right.
Okay. Sorry for that report. Confused me a little on the commentary there. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Eddie?
Yep. Yeah, Scott.
Through you to Paul. Paul, what kind of roof are you gonna put on Cedar Hill? You're gonna tin that?
No, asphalt shingle, not those pre-tab ones. We'll put the.
Why wouldn't you tin it? Tin it's forever.
Well, to keep the cost down and to keep the.
Did you do a cost assessment if you tinned it? Is there a number for that, or?
I didn't, because it's also a maintenance issue with snow flying down on it, and you know, if that happens on a Sunday morning and no one's around, but the restaurant's open and stuff like that, it's be more of a operational.
I look, it's no different than the town hall shedding the stuff off.
Well, that's a slate roof.
Still as slick as tin.
Yeah, there's.
I was just looking at that the asphalt shingles. They tell you they're 30. They last, if you're lucky, 2022. They tell you they're the hurricane ones. They're still not making it to what the guarantee is. I just thought that, you know, everybody's going tin. This thing would be one and done.
Yeah, no,
Just
I,
a question, just a question.
yeah, no, that's okay. I didn't think of that because as you know, at the town hall, sometimes it's a safety issue also.
Oh, yeah. But with the tin that I've seen going up, they are controlling it a little bit better. It's
Yeah.
just not many people are there during the winter anyhow, so by the time, you know, that part could be addressed where they go in and out, they do address those, but if it sheds off the back, you don't care. Nobody's taking the stuff in through the back, you know what I mean? So I was just thinking, you know, we wouldn't have to revisit this for a long, long time if it was tin. I just didn't know if you had done like a one-to-one. See where.
I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't. I quite frankly, I don't want to put a metal roof on there, but that's, for what I just said, that's it.
That's fine.
Anybody else? All right.
I just agree with the previous speaker that metal roofs are great, but other than that, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Ah, yes, okay.
Guess
Let's
what,
move-
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that too. We own property in another state and had a metal roof put on about 4 years ago, and have snow stops that stop the stuff cold. So, where that's a nice flat roof, there aren't any, gables or any kind of sticker, it might be worth it to get a price. I can't imagine it would be much more than that. So can we request that a price be gotten for that? Thank you.
I can answer that, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah, we can request that and we can, I'm sure with our contracted roofer, we could probably get something done if the price is right.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And I'm certainly not saying 50,000 and then in another 20 years, another 50,000. Would it be worth it now to spend 60 to 70 and have it done forever?
Well, we're capped at 50.
Well, that's true. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Chet.
Chet Collins. I think the town hired Paul for his expertise, and I believe that we should not be second guess Paul on his decision to bring articles to the town. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to clarify something I said. I'm not questioning the expertise of the facility manager. I was just agreeing with the previous speaker that metal roofs are nice roofs, that's all.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I want to retort that too. I wasn't picking on Paul. I'm in the business. I'm around the stuff all the time. I was just asking a simple question. Wasn't no personal attack on anybody. I'm just looking what was the best bang for the buck. And asphalt shingles are not the way of the future anymore. It's an oil product and they're not being made as well as they used to be. They're cutting a lot of stuff out, putting a lot of synthetic in them, and it's some of them don't stick very well. Go take a look at some of the roofs that are up on a certain development that's being built, and half of them came off in the last windstorm.
Hey, Paul,
It's no attack, and
Okay, can I say that too for,
all right.
I'm not attacking anyone, just
all
making a
about money.
suggestion. Just making a suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak now?
Yeah, you can speak now.
Okay, thank you. I take no offense to any question that anyone asks me. It's not, I'm not trying to cancel the Stoughton Finance Committee. We're okay. It's okay, you can ask me whatever you want. It's okay, that's your right. And I'll answer it to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for that explanation. Thank you.
We move on now. We good with this one?
You can't cancel town hall, that's for sure.
All right, does anybody from the public have a question on Article 20 about the roofs at the Dog Pound or at Cedar Hill?
I just have a quick question, Mr. Chairman. Mark Zemanian, 5 Low Avenue, through you to Paul Jaffoon. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good, Mark. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I was looking at the bid from what's the name of the company? Almar LLC on the roof for Cedar Hill. The only thing I'm not seeing is the lifespan on the shingles. I saw the 6 nail, I saw the TimberTex, but the GAF makes products from 25 to 50 years, and I'm curious what this is being quoted out as.
It was a 30-year shingle.
It's a 30-year shingle?
It's gonna be metal now.
Huh?
It's gonna be metal now, remember?
You know, I'm totally hip to metal. I think it's a better product, but I'm not going there. So thanks, Paul. Appreciate your answer.
All right.
All right. Anybody else in the public?
We could
wanna
pave
comment
it,
on
Paul.
this? All right, we're done with that one. All right, we'll go on to, let's do Article 16, the general fund budget. This is mostly for municipal operations committee. I'm not sure how we, let's just do a quick overview. The budget right now is about 108,454,000 and change. We are currently in deficit of 502,000. And then you add the enterprise funds on top of this, and we're like 130 million or so, somewhere on it. And that is where we currently stand with the budget. We vetted all departments. We've been through the whole thing. We're pretty happy with where it's currently at. We're working on closing the deficit. We have some ideas on how to do that. And that is where we currently stand. So if anybody from municipal ops has any questions about the budget or general questions, be glad to answer them best we can.
Anyone with questions on 108 million plus? Well, I guess we studied it line by line and we're perfectly satisfied.
All right, wonderful. Well, the budget committee's already seen the budget. Anybody got any questions from FinCom on this one?
I didn't know how you get the deficit from 524 to 502.
Mr. Rowe's new sheet that came out today or yesterday.
Okay.
I think it was
thank
today.
you. I'll look at that. I know I printed them out today. I'll look at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Next is the big one.
Okay, anybody from the public have any general comments on the budget? Article 16. All right, hearing none. Now we will move on to Article 19, the capital equipment purchases. I guess we'll just go section by section, probably easier. All right, this is Article 19. The total, at least as of the updated warrant 318 that came out. I think, I don't know which one. We're still at 1185.
I haven't adjusted it since that time.
All right, we're still at 1,185,000. Okay. Is Chief McNamara here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Chief, you can go first and discuss the police department's requests.
Okay, we're looking for cruisers. I think all the documentation was shared by Deb. And we're looking for a couple, 67,000 some change for the tasers and some AEDs and a shed. Which would you like me to go with first?
Oh, just go with the cruisers, I guess. That's the big item.
Okay, so
The replacement site, all that sort of business.
So As I've expressed in the years past, we kind of try to exchange the cruisers right around the fall, October, November, and then we get them in the time frame of May, June at the end of the fiscal year. That's how we've done it in the last few years. We've had a couple hiccups in a couple of past years because of the availability. We're looking at buying, if we can get them, the Ford Explorers, but that has been a little bit of an issue. So that's why you'll see in the documentation that we have a quote for Tahoe. Because we have had issues getting the Explorers because of the backlog of 1 year that was missed. So you'll also see that there's the computer patrol PC documentation for the quote that goes in the cruiser, as well as other equipment that goes in each cruiser. So we will look to get rid of 2018 Ford Explorers, hopefully, but again, sometimes we have issues with accidents or other issues that cause damage to a vehicle that we have to change what we're going to get rid of next year. We would be looking at vehicles that currently right now are 2018 Ford Explorers for the next fiscal year.
All right, could you go over the tasers, how many and roughly the average cost or whatever?
Okay, so the tasers, what we did, over a 3-year period of time, we have purchased and replaced all the tasers for the department, which was 65, and we're paying it out over a 3-year plan. We were able to secure a $39,000 grant back in September for most of the almost $68,000 that's due each year. I've put in to borrow the entire almost $68,000, but intend to apply for that grant again this coming September for equipment. So I may or may not, depending on what I get granted, need to use all of the money borrowed for next year. But we wouldn't have to come up with the $68,000 for the second year of installment of the purchase of all the tasers. We currently have the tasers. They're in our armory, and they will be issued to the officers after they receive in-service training this April, May, depending on when we get it done.
Okay, the other stuff's pretty self-explanatory. All right, does anybody, Ms. Walsh from Municipal Operations, have any questions on the police items?
Anyone? Are you
Yeah.
talking about all 4 items?
Yes, all 4, anything you want.
Okay, for the members that don't have their warrant, it's 3 marked cruisers, tasers, a storage shed, and 3 defibrillators.
Yes, I have a question to you, to the chief. Is the storage shed being replaced, or is that new?
No, that would be new. We've just simply run out of room inside the station. We have closets that are used as offices, and we have other closets now where we've had to secure a great number of the PPE and other equipment that we're running out of space.
Will that be taking up any of the parking spaces, or will you be using part of the municipal lot for your parking?
I believe so. We already use part of the municipal lot, and if we will be using some of the spaces within the lot on the property of the police station as well.
Thank
you. Have you finished, Mark?
Yes.
Anyone else from Municipal Operations? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody on FinCom have questions on the police budget, police items?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Elliot.
Just, Chief, I was wondering how the transmissions are hanging or standing up on the Ford Explorers. I understand there's been some problems on the Ford transmissions. Can you fill me in a little bit?
We don't seem to be having problems as far as I would have to check with Sergeant Hardy, but we've had a lot of problems with some other issues. But I mean, the mechanical overall has been pretty good. The Tahoe seemed to be working out a little bit better, but it's a little bit more expensive. So that's part of the issue that we're dealing with.
Okay, thank you.
The Tahoes are a little bit more expensive, but they're working out a little bit better. And the Ford Explorers, we've been replacing water pumps quite a bit. Transmission doesn't seem to be something that we've dealt with very much.
Oh, that's good. The water pumps are a lot cheaper than the transmission.
I would have to double check with Sergeant Hyde, I believe that's what it was. He seems to be taking them in quite a bit.
Thank you.
Gary Daly.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
I
Ed.
have a question. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
That's okay. Hey, is it okay, Ed?
Yeah, good, Dave.
Okay, thank you. Through you to the Chief McNamara. I think this question is kind of routine. At least it used to be, and I think before our time, I know before my time, and probably before your time as a chief, the board set up a policy of requiring 3 new vehicles a year. How's that working out? Because now that we've had several years of using that policy of always having 3 cars or 3 cruisers, is it working? Like, are we buying more cars than we need? Are we not buying enough cars than we should have? How is the policy working out?
So that would be the policy. Really, it's with regards to marked policies, marked cruisers. It is, the time frame is right around between 80,000 and 90,000 that they want them replaced. That's sort of the reason why the thought process was to get rid of them every 3 years, because they do work, 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week. And they're usually getting traded out right around the 90,000 mark. So the ones that we're getting rid of this year are right around that point. We're at 50,000 on the vehicles that we anticipate potentially getting rid of in mileage for next year. So it's been pretty good. We have not, like I said, we have to be, able to change gears if something happens to another car that is more damaged. So we can't lock ourselves into only trading certain vehicles in on the 3-year mark. We have one cruiser that we're probably getting rid of that we've had since 2015, but it was because it was assigned to mainly be driven by an SRO, so it didn't put as many miles as other cars. So we've hung on to that car a little bit longer because it hasn't reached the mileage mark. But we haven't had an issue with the 3. Sometimes we've had 4. Last year we were granted 3 marked cruisers and 1 unmarked. We try to stay right around the 3 each year, and it's worked out well.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if it was either too generous to the department or too restrictive. I didn't know how it was working out now that there's been so many years of using it. So, but it's good. It sounds like it's workable, and
it seems to work really well because of we've seen the mileage get to that point and the wear and tear of them before we're starting to invest a lot of money into the vehicle to keep it on the road. It's coming up. And also we've sort of delayed when we start to purchase them. Instead of purchasing them right after the fiscal year starts and we get the ability to borrow the money, we delay it a few months if we can, and we try to purchase the vehicles between October and November, and then we get them after the winter, and we get a little bit longer out of those vehicles before we get rid of them.
guys, yeah, thank you for that. I noticed changing gears. I used the automobile analogy like you did, but the tasers. I saw the YouTube video of Chief Shastany when he was selling everybody on, hey, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he actually went right down to the floor. It was a safe landing. He had some help, but so tasers are going to be the way of the future, as well as they have been since they've been purchased, as a way that all police will have that option, so that there's a safe way to kind of de-escalate situations. Is that Is that why you're
So
asking?
this is an upgraded version of what we originally purchased back, years back, thanks to Chief Shastney's demonstration. It is a less lethal option that we have had for a considerable amount of time, for officers to use in situations, and it has been beneficial for us.
Well, glad to hear that. It's always nice to hear that there's, safe ways to de-escalate those situations, so thank you.
All right, who is next? Scott?
Eddie, thank you. Through you to Chief McNamara. Chief, when you talk storage shed, are you talking wood, or could you get away with like a nice ground container?
So that was one of the things I did look at, a storage container, smaller one. We did look at that. Just, it depends on it really was the cost of some of those. But yeah, I would not have a problem with the storage container that we could possibly paint to sort of blend in with the black fence.
Sure.
It's really just to keep things dry and secure, and that's all it is.
All right, anybody else?
Mr.
I had a question.
I heard John and Vaughn, is it?
No, I was just letting you know that John had a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good, John.
Hi, Chief, how are you tonight?
Good, how you doing, John?
Good, thanks, good. I don't know if I missed it. Is there a life expectancy on these tasers? I'm not sure if I missed it. The sound was kind of gravelly, shall we say.
So there's not, we're upgrading them from the first initial purchases that we got, and it's a new version. And there's some features that in this Taser 7 option that is an improvement on the device itself.
All right, and do these, the ones that you get, do they have the video on them?
No.
They don't?
No.
All right. And
So
these
we
are,
had- in the original tasers that we got back with Chief Shastany, we ended up having to get rid of the video because of the problems that we were having with the video. So now, really, what is out there is body cams for video.
okay, yeah, it makes sense to me to have that, but, and these are still, when the taser is issued, that is per officer, right? These aren't shared, this is,
That's correct.
so that the tracking on it is definitely per officer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody else? All right, anybody from the public have any questions on the police items?
Mr. Chair, just one brief question through you to the police chief. Hi, Donna, how are you?
Good, how you doing, Mark?
Good. So you've applied for and received a $39,000 grant for those tasers?
For a portion of the tasers, yes. we
Yeah,
received that.
brings our cost down to about 28.5, something like that, off the top of my head. I think that's fantastic. Is that a grant that is offered every year? And if so, and we get it every year, is this, in other words, you wouldn't spend the money, so I presume it would be a turn back if you did get the grant, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And it's every September, it's called the Burden Grant, that we will apply again this September for it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm glad to see that you're on top of those sorts of things. It means a lot to us as taxpayers. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public have any comment on the police items? All right, hearing none. We are done with your part, Chief McNamara. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we'll do the fire department next. They have a staff vehicle, some furniture, radio communications, scuba gear, self-contained breathing apparatuses, thermal imaging cameras, hoses and adapters, and some miscellaneous EMT equipment. Who's gonna take this one?
I'm going to take this tonight. Good evening, everybody. So I believe Chief Flaherty had presented or given you the packets. Everybody should have the packets. If you don't, I'm sure we can get them out to you. My name's Assistant Chief. I'm Assistant Chief Michael Carroll. So I thought we'd start page 4 and 5. and I know from previous meetings that Chief Lowry had already presented this as far as a 5-year layout. So we're just really focused on fiscal year 22, which is on page either 4 or 5. Page 5 is outlined. And of course, I'll just go through it maybe, and if there's any questions at the end. First one's the vehicle. We're looking to replace our 2007 Ford Explorer, which our mechanic presently has. It has 167,000 miles on it. We'd like to replace that with a F-150. It's just, I think would be, due to our policy, which the chief had put together when he first came here, it really works in well. It's policy 711 and 712, and it's just a rotation. So this vehicle is 14 years old, and it falls into that life expectancy. At the meeting at this that was endorsed by the board with hopes that the town would adopt a similar policy town-wide. It was our goal to follow these policies and guidelines, and as we come before the town, request capital projects to replace the vehicles within the fire department. I believe you were presented with that, and as well as the chart. So at this time, the 2000 Ford Explorer would be the one that would be replaced, and that would be the mechanic's vehicle. Moving on would be radios. Radios are projected out to $35,000, and after a meeting today with Chief Lowry, we were thinking that maybe we could lower that to possibly $20,500. And the reason for that is we just were able to purchase off last year 17 portables, and we believe if we can purchase another 10, every firefighter will have the APX 4000, which is the Motorola radios that we all would be using. Of course, they'd be purchased under the state bid, and they're classified as a life safety portable, along with all the software that comes with that. Moving on, I believe it was the EMS equipment. We projected a cost of $25,000. We like to have that there, honestly, because EMS equipment gets the money gets used up rather quickly. $25,000 could be $30,000 would be the cost of what we call a Life Pack 12, which is I would call it a defibrillator, but it's not an automatic defibrillator. It does a lot more. It's a lot more advanced than what would be an automatic defibrillator. Or, there's a couple other pieces of equipment, and it really gets expensive quick. So to have that money there, there's a company, there's a Stretches Striker, which tend to, I don't know whether they don't necessarily fail, but they need repairs quite often, and they're also mandated now by the state to be in our ambulances. So it's to have that money there in case anything does happen after warranties or whatnot. That money is actually vital for EMS. The self-contained breathing apparatus, that's the SCBAs, that's the air packs that we wear. When Chief Lowry came here, we were able to, he put in for an AFG grant. We received, I believe it was $193,000, and we were able to purchase 23 sets, which would be the whole air pack, the regulator and all, plus spare bottles with each one of those packs. We were also able to purchase a Scott air compressor, which is our filling station. So when we're out of air, and come back from fires and training, we're able to fill those bottles right on spot. Some of our bottles and packs did not meet the requirements of the grant at the time. Well, in those years, we have now bottles that need to be replaced and packs that need to be replaced, and so that money would go towards that. We would also like to get maybe a couple spare bottles with that, but mostly it's the packs, I believe. And then moving on to there is our thermal imaging camera. Our thermal imaging cameras, projected cost is $25,000. The technology's changing. This is actually a game changer for the fire department and the fire service. It does more than just able to quote unquote see through the smoke. It picks up. Now they're able to pick up temperatures. They're able to pick up. Actually, you can actually scan woods for lost victims. I'm not sure exactly what the actual visibility is with that, but it's as far as heat can be picked up at nighttime or in the woods, the heat of the body, and we set in. Now they have them so they set the temperature to what would be approximately 98.6, which would pick up a body, and somebody if we're searching for anybody in the woods, but also inside the buildings again, the ability to see through smoke, the ability to see trapped victims, or even our way out. So we have two of them. They're a little bit older, and we'd like to replace those and put them on our front pieces and take the older ones and put them on our ladder and our other spare piece, especially when we go out of town and go to respond to other fires. Like the ladder went over to Brockton the other night, and it would be nice to have one of those thermal images on there. Moving on, and of course, I'll take questions at the end for sake of time. Fire hosing connections. This is $15,000, and it's the connections. It's water thieves. It's new couplings, and they, the couplings are just like any other type of coupling, so they get beaten up a little bit when either dragged or you're using them. I noticed even again at the fire the other night in the Brockton or Easton, we have to replace a couple of things that the threads were off. So, we'd like to have the ability to do that. And then I believe finishing up, let me just make sure it's the last one. It would be station furniture. So we're looking for $20,000. We put in for $20,000. To replace, the idea is about $15,000 for station 1 and then $5,000 for station 2. And starting with station 2, I know that furniture. This is what the day staff, the shift uses. So it's downstairs. I know that hasn't been replaced really since probably the beginning of the opening of station 2, and station 1. The safety building committee came through, did some tours, and they even made a lot of statements about our furniture and that we need to provide better furniture for the guys. So again, all this will go through procurement, but we felt that was a comfortable number. That being said, I believe that's it. And of course, we'll take any questions, and Chief Larissey's here as well if there's any direct questions for him.
I could just thank the assistant chief. I believe this was his first presentation to.
Yeah, I kind of flew through it.
No, you did a great job,
Okay.
Chief. And but I just wanted to thank you. And then I know this is sort of your first formal introduction, I believe, to our assistant chief. And thanks, Chief, for a great job tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, municipal ops, Ms. Walsh, does anybody have any questions on the fire department items?
Anyone?
Yes, through you. My question would be on the furniture and why you feel it is vital at this time where our town is looking to cut back, save money during the pandemic, knowing that things are not going on. Why is it needed now and can't wait till next year or whatnot?
Well, and Chief, you can obviously any response that you have, but I believe if you were to come up, especially at Station 1, we've always taken furniture, used furniture, what people were tending to throw away would take if it was a little bit better than what we've had. I don't know the last time we bought new furniture at Station One, and you know, it was a question. I mean, obviously, we found it as a priority and a need. You know, a lot of if even if you were to come up and take a look, it's there's not one piece of furniture that's brand new in that place. It's quite literally, people call us, say, hey, we're getting rid of a sofa or chair, do you want it? And we're like, well, we'll take a look at it. If it's better than what we got, yeah. And so I think it's, you know, I think the guys deserve more. I think they deserve, and it's not a question of like luxury or anything. I think it's a question of need. The furniture, the stuffing is falling out. We cover it with blankets. Some blankets that we're able to take from the hospital, we cover it just to keep it together. There's tape on some of the other stuff, and we just felt like it was time.
I understand that it probably is needed, that you guys would like to have the new furniture. I was just wondering why it was put in under this during these times.
Well, I think it's more of a need than a want, to be honest with you. If it was something that was wanted, I could certainly see putting it off and trying. And Chief Larcy, if you have anything else, but I think it actually, I wouldn't say it builds morale, but it certainly says, okay, yeah, you have a place that we can, make it a little bit better for the time being.
Well, Mark, if I could add to that.
Okay.
So you had mentioned why not, we're going to get a new station potentially,
Right.
why not wait a year?
Right.
And the real question is, even if we were to go ahead with a new station, whether it's May, the fall, you're still looking 3 years down the road. So what we have there, you'd have to make it last 3 more years. It's not a year. And I remember when we started this whole process of having people tour the station, see the condition of Station 1, we were looking to replace it. I had one of the Board of Selectmen pull me off to the side and he says, I have to find a way to get new furniture here because this is embarrassing, especially with people touring this facility. So going back to your point, valid points, but if we were looking at maybe a year, we could probably would say yeah, but we're not. We're looking at a minimum of like 3, 2
Okay.
to 3. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you both.
Anyone else from municipal operations? Mr. Chairman, I don't know how legal it is, but there's so many furniture outlets in Stoughton. Can't we kind of send them a friendly email and, hey, if you're thinking of getting rid of any sofas or things that haven't sold, I'm not talking stuff that's been used, but I mean, well, maybe I am. The floor models, the things that they have out on the floor for people to test out before they buy a new sofa. Could we just send them a subtle message? I mean, the school department has done this with IKEA. IKEA actually in the administrative building donated furniture for some of the rooms. So I don't know if it's illegal to do that, but maybe it is.
No, Ms. Walsh, I think it's certainly something Fran Brutinetti can look into for us on the legalities of it, but I believe we can accept donations certainly, and if the outlets are the lowest cost, then that opens up the door for us to go that route too. But yeah, we'll definitely talk to Fran about that.
No, I'm not asking them to take, it sounds like they've been taking stuff that should be at the curb.
Yeah.
I think the floor models at many of these outlets, sure, someone previously has tested them out, but I mean, they sell them to the public cheaper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, your committee all set, Ms. Walsh? Okay. All right, anybody from FinCom have any questions for the fire department?
Yeah, how you doing, Eddie? Dave?
Okay, good, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. By the way, Mr. Carroll, I thought it was a terrific job you did. Welcome to the
Thank
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer.
Nice presentation. We always look forward to the fire department's presentations because they're always so well done. So you're doing a great job of carrying the torch. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
My question is actually to Eddie because back in 2017, the emergency radios, I recused myself during that vote because of a conflict that I have. But this purchase is bundled in with a bunch of other items at the fire department. So I'm not sure whether or not I'm recusing myself on the entire fire, capital requirements, or am I just recusing myself on, like, it's not going to be separated from the rest of the items. So I'm guessing I'm recusing myself for the whole group of items, right?
I don't know. I think the conflict's only with the one item, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, is it one vote or is it,
Well, we usually vote everything separate, so I don't know.
7 votes for, it'll be, Part B will be 7 votes.
I don't know. We usually vote separate. I'd vote the whole thing, but I don't know. We'll see when we get there.
Dave, I would say during our talks, you can certainly speak on any of the 6 that don't pertain to the radios. And when it gets to town meeting, if we're voting individually, you're not gonna have a problem. If you're voting as a whole and you have an issue with one of the things that's in there, you just step aside, that's all.
I'll just step aside for the whole group. Okay, thank you.
But you certainly have every right to talk to the other 6.
Perfect, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Are you all set? Okay. Anybody else? for fire department?
Jess has a question. She's had her hand up for a while.
Yes. Jess, go ahead.
Thanks, Ed. Through you to Assistant Chief Carroll. Just a question about why some of these things are being presented to us as capital items and not actually just incorporated into the budget. I'm thinking, things like furniture, hose couplings, hoses. I mean, these are sort of regular operational items that I imagine the fire department needs. And I guess I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about why this isn't just sort of built into the budget as opposed to presented separately. Thank you.
I'd probably have to defer this to Chief Laracy. Chief, I came into this and of course I asked to present it, but some of this was already preset. So Chief Laracy, do you want to?
Oh, absolutely. Good question, Jess. And
thank you.
A number of years ago, this topic was brought up at a selectmen's meeting. I'll give you an example. We came before your committee, Board of Selectmen, town meeting to purchase 60 sets of gear, firefighting gear. And I believe at the time it was a cost of $180,000. And the question was, why are we always doing this at once? Why don't you incorporate it into your budget, into your operational budget? And as the budgets get tighter and tighter, it's just too much funding. It would increase our operational budget, too much to be approved. Obviously, it's going to be a red flag in certain line items, when things are increased. And also, too, my understanding was, a lot of these items, because they're over $5,000, fall under the capital budget item. So we did look at that, and to be honest with you, that's why you'll see in our 5-year plan why it's broken down over the years. So we're only purchasing a little bit at a time. But instead of doing that through our budget, which we weren't able to get through, we do it through the capital.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Rowe.
Yeah, maybe most of the committee members know, maybe not all, that we do have a capital outlay bylaw. Anything over 10,000 has to be approved by town meeting. Some of the stuff might be small stuff, which could come out of the operating budget, but something like the vehicle, things like that has to be specific vote by town meeting. So, unless of course there's an emergency, and then FinCom with a 2/3 vote can authorize to spend it out of the operating budget. So.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense to me. I just was thinking with some of the smaller items that they, could be in the budget and purchased in smaller quantities on a more ongoing basis. It was just a kind of a basic thought about, and I understand the issue with the trying to keep the budget itself down, but at the end of the day, we're still in the same place of needing to fund it, right? And so I guess it just seems like if it were inside the budget and these are things that you're going to need, and we know you're going to need, and sort of on a regular basis, kind of gives a more accurate reflection back to what the actual operating costs are. So it does seem like, the fire department shouldn't be in a position where we're forcing you to have to put things that should be in your budget into capital plans and then buying in larger quantities, instead of just sort of maybe smaller amounts over time. So I guess I just wanted to ask about that, but thank you for the clarification.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Giovino?
Okay, John, go ahead.
First, welcome to the fray here, Mr. Carroll.
It's been interesting and exciting so far.
But no, you did fine. You did fine presenting what you needed. I just wanted to make sure you said on the radios that you had talked to the chief and you were looking to drop that to 20,500 for the radios.
Correct. Yeah. We feel like I believe we'll be able. So the AV 4000s is what you see there, which is what we all have gone to, and they seem to be a real durable radio, and tend to really like them. Simple, be able to switch over really quickly to either other towns or other frequencies. So I think if we have enough to purchase 10 more, that will outfit the rest of the department. So, and we'll be in the right place. So we thought, obviously, if we just want to be transparent here. If we can do that with that type of money and lessen that a little, we thought that would be the right thing to do.
Sure. I wanted to make sure I heard that right and had the right amount.
Yep. So 20,500.
And the staff vehicle is the pickup.
It is, yes.
And that's for the mechanic?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something about this too. I agree with the previous speaker about maybe some of this stuff should be in the budget. Some of the stuff that you buy on a regular basis, ordinary stuff, especially if it's below that threshold, it should be in the budget. It's just what I think about it, but thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Eddie,
Anybody else?
Eddie, I got one question, Ed.
Yep, go ahead.
Through you to Chief Carroll. Mikey, the pickup, is it going to be a utility truck or a straight pickup?
It's going to be a straight pickup, and we're going to hopefully outfit it with so he's going to be able to protect his tools and stuff. Yeah, but it's not a utility.
I didn't know if you were going to do tool side or not. No, that's fine.
No, it's going to probably just be his own. We'll obviously put boxes on it to protect his tools, but yeah. Thanks, John.
All right, anybody else? All right, just a quick question, Chief. The radios, does this include the batteries? Are you okay on the batteries for the units, for the radios?
Yeah, yes, sir. They come with batteries, and we have, I believe, enough. And I'm not sure the life expectancy, but they're on a rotation. So at the beginning of every shift, kind of, unless it's been a long incident, we have the charging stations. And I believe, Chief Laushi, am I correct? And I believe we have enough portables. I just don't know the exact dates on them or the life expectancy on the batteries themselves.
Yep. So, obviously the life of a battery, a portable battery, radio portable, is probably 2 to 3 years. And we cover those batteries through our operational budget.
Okay, good. All right, we want to make sure. Radio's not any good without a battery.
That's right.
All right. Okay, anybody else? FinCom. Okay, does anybody from the public have any questions on the fire department items? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, chiefs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to DPW. A wood chipper replacement, 25,000, and a new trash truck for 300 large. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Tom Fitzgerald, Public Works. This year, the wood chipper, it's actually a wood chipper box, which will go on the back of a six-wheel truck that we took on our service when we redid the catch basin truck a couple of years ago. So it's actually not a wood chipper, it's a wood chipper box. It's a box that the wood chipper shoots the chips into, and you can dump it from there. So that's what that item is. And the second item is a trash truck. Last time we bought a trash truck was 5 years ago. We run a fleet of eight trash trucks, and the average age of our fleet right now is 16.63 years. So they range from anywhere from 5 to 28 years old. So we're looking to move that average age fleet down to a lower number, and that's it.
All right, Ms. Walsh, does anybody from your committee have any questions?
Anyone? I just have a comment for Mr. Fitzgerald and the trash crew. I mean, whether it's winter or windy or snowy or rainy, and now we'll head into where it's hot. The guys are always great. And I've been very happy with my trash pickup. And if I happen to be in the yard, I always get a wave. Friendly too.
Glad to hear that. We have a dedicated crew that does a great job. I'm trying to keep them safe on safe equipment.
Okay, no other questions from municipal ops. We'll go on to FinCom. Who wants to start?
I think Jess has her hand up, Mr. Chairman. Elliot has his hand up, and Joel has his hand up, and I think Jess has had her hand up the longest. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Jess.
Actually, I need to defer. I saw Joel and Elliot's hand up before me this time, but thank you, Vaughn. And I know Scott was trying to wave too, so I'll just.
I'll go last, Jess.
All right, so that means we'll have Joel.
Okay, thanks. Tom, the trash truck that you're replacing, are you replacing a trash truck or adding one?
You'd be replacing it.
The
Looks like
one
it'd
that you're
be
replacing, does it have any salvage value?
probably a few $1,000s. There's not a great market for a 28-year-old trash truck.
I don't know. I might pick it up as a present for my daughter's wedding, but
Good luck.
Again, what we'll do is we'll evaluate it based on what they'll give us for it. We might be able to use it as a replacement for our older sanders, make a permanent sander out of it. But once we get a trade-in value for it, it's going to make that assessment. My gut feeling is it's
your
probably going
cost of the new truck does not include the salvage value of the old.
No.
Okay, thank you.
My gut feeling is it's probably going to go away. We'll probably take a trade-in on it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Elliot.
Just quick question. Is that the trash masher truck that we always see coming around the town?
It'd be one of the municipal solid waste trucks, yep. Not the yellow trucks, not the green ones.
Okay, well, if you managed to make one of them last 28 years, I think you've done a miracle. Somebody has. Thank you.
Okay, Jess.
Question about, the lifespan of these trucks in general. So you said the average age right now is 16 years. What is reasonable to expect out of trash trucks? I mean, I would imagine they do last longer than 10 years on average. I don't know. So I know that this one is older, but I'd be curious to know, how long we should be expecting them to last, and also if you have sort of a capital plan for trash truck replacement, just given the high costs of the vehicles. Thank you.
It's a great question. Actually, I'm in the process of putting together a 5-year capital plan, and all the research I've done is indicating that they're looking to replace these between the 7 and 12 year period. Obviously, that's just a range. It could go either way of that, depending on the vehicle and how it's used. But we seem to maintain them pretty well, so I would be shooting for the 12-year, the higher end of that range. Even if we replace this truck here, by the time we get it, a year from now, our average, it's only going to bring our average age of our fleet to 14 years. So probably expect another one of these in maybe not next year, but the year after.
And I guess just a quick follow-up, couldn't we go with something like Stoughton Pride? We make our trash trucks last longer than any other town, rather than trying to reduce the age on the trucks. I mean, if they're generally working, they're picking up trash. I mean, I understand that there could be some concerns, but I just think like we should be aiming for, let's get the last mile out of the trash trucks, not reduce the age on the overall fleet, just as a rallying cry here.
That's been our overall goal. But as we find out that the newer trucks are not going to last as long as the older trucks. A truck we bought in 2016, I guarantee it won't be here in the same condition as that 1993 truck in 28 years. There's much more electronics. The whole systems on the trucks are not as durable as the older ones are. The frames are single frames instead of double frames. It's unfortunately the way things are going with all the equipment.
Okay, all set, Jess? All right, Scott.
Did everybody already go, Eddie? I'm not jumping the line, am I?
Well, that's who I had ahead of you.
All right.
Anybody else out there? Anybody else? Anybody else?
I'd like to ask a question, but I defer to Scott.
All right,
Okay.
I'll go, Eddie. Through you to Mr. Fitzgerald, Tom. I don't think it's too prudent to put any money into that 28-year-old truck. I think you should just cut your losses and move it on. Do the what the policy is: trade it, auction, or junk it. I can't see cutting that frame and shorting it to put a sander on it and spending that kind of money. If it's that tired, then just roll it out.
Probably the direction I'd be heading.
I think it's a good direction to head. I can't see if you're gonna run it longer. If you're gonna do that to it, it'll hold just as much weight with a sander on it as it would a Packer.
Okay, you all set, Scott? Okay, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, I'm looking at the quote right now, I believe, for the Mack trash truck. Is this just a standard trash truck that one would think of? I guess I'll start there.
Basically, when you go ahead.
You go ahead. Sorry.
Basically, when you price a truck, you decide what truck or cab and chassis you're going to put it on, and you purchase the body separately. So they go up, the two of those packages combined end up with this the final quote. You actually build it. You can't go to the lot and pick on a trash truck.
Okay.
You have to spec it out. You have to decide what works best for you, what fits your needs, and go from there.
Okay, that's very helpful. And I guess my next question, as either you're thinking about this particular trash truck or as a part of the 5-year capital plan, how are you thinking, if at all, about investing in technology to reduce labor costs and or to allow staff to be freed up for other parts of town? And what I'm thinking about is, I think a lot of communities are moving towards, using the robotic arms to pick up trash. I'm just wondering if that's a part of the sort of planning and thought process or considerations that you're going to be doing as a part of the 5-year capital plan, to think about whether technological investments are something worthwhile. That's
definitely on the table. Right now, to do that, you'd have to do the entire town. And it's a whole different investment in your fleet. You'd have to really revamp your whole fleet.
And I guess I assume for your first question, could you modify, if you buy this Mack truck, then and you were thinking even maybe the old one you could turn into a sander, you can modify these as time goes on if you want to, like switch to something else? Is that accurate?
Probably not for the mechanical arm.
Okay.
It's a different, the body's set up differently. That's a side load packer. This is a rear load packer. But that's definitely on the table, but it's maybe years down the road, and we have a need for this truck now.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll be glad to support the purchase of this new trash truck. I will tell you, the best visit that we get is from the trash truck. It creates a lot of excitement here at the Thomas household for Pax and Cora. So, and the gentlemen who are on the truck and picking up trash are always so kind. So I'll echo Cynthia's comments as well. Thank you for all they do.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Ed, I got my hand up here.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Tom, along with that, the backup material we have, I mean, a lot of it's just combined for a lot of things. And, for the Mack truck, I see like 98,000. I'm not sure where the other 200 comes from, but I'm sure it's in here somewhere.
That's actually just for the Packer body itself. If you're looking at that, the bottom, the last number on that page.
I mean, this package we got was like 55 pages, and I'm trying to put it together on what would be put together to make up the 300,000.
It should be it's on the very first page.
No, well, okay. I mean, the estimate I had here on the Mack truck said 98,000 total. But anyhow, I'll go through the rest of that later to find out where it came from to get it that high. The question I had is, when we spoke to you on the budget, you had mentioned that you were looking at this whole operation and what might be able to be done and so forth. And I believe one of the statements you made at that time was, depending on how things went and how you might end up conducting this in the future, you might actually be able to buy smaller trucks. So my question is, if this is a typical truck that we have now, and we're actually looking at revisiting this whole operation and where we might be going, what kind of time frame would we be looking at if, in fact, I heard you right saying that you could buy, smaller trucks because they wouldn't be running all the way down, and so forth, maybe doing a different type of operation?
If that came to fruition, it'd be a minimum of 2 years by the time it got funded, constructed, and implemented. And the current age of our fleet and the condition of it, I don't think we could wait that long to limp through. And I'll have more information on that further, but that's the probability that is less than what I had within the last 3 weeks since we spoke. I'm not as confident that's going to happen.
All right. And you said this is replacing one that's how old now?
28 years.
Oh. You can't squeeze 30, Tom. Come on.
I could. The other side of this coin is I looked through the maintenance costs for the last 3 years. We've right about, there was 82,000 in 18, 98,000 in 19, and 98,000 in 20. Yeah, is just for maintenance for these H trucks.
So price of the truck, yeah. All right, like I said, I just wasn't sure with the, with the presentation we had the other day there, whether, whether we could do something if in fact down the line we'd be buying, a smaller truck, which I assume would be a cheaper
right.
truck. So, all right.
I took that into consideration. Believe me, I wouldn't be here if I thought that was going to be sooner than that.
All right, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John.
Okay, anybody else, FinCom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions on this.
Okay, go ahead, Juan.
The chipper thing, that's just the box that the chips go into?
Yep, it's an aluminum body that would sit on a dump truck that will actually dump. So if you see a tree company, they have a truck that's an enclosed box that has a screen on it. It's what we use now is an old half a pipe, which was moved from one truck to when the truck died about 6 years ago, got moved to a smaller truck. So it's really not appropriate. So we had the truck that we took out of service for the catch basin. The truck only has 63,000 miles on it. It's an older vehicle, but the idea was to put this chipper box on that. the aluminum chipper box, so that can be moved to another vehicle when something came off the line in the future. So it's a safety issue, convenience issue, and it's something that can be used long term.
Okay, thank you for that. I also had a question about the truck. I might have missed it. What year is the truck that we're replacing?
1993.
1993. Okay, great. Thank you. And then we're hoping to get 12 years out of the trucks going forward.
12 to 15.
Great. Okay, thank you. I think it's a good idea to get a truck because I know that they're driving around all the time picking up trash. So you have to replace them sooner or later.
We keep them longer than most people do.
I like that saying by one of the other committee members. We keep our trucks longer or whatever it was. Thank you very much. I think that was, the old truck. Are we going to get rid of that old truck? We're getting rid of it, right?
Yes, I would say that's going to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think this is a great idea. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? FinCom?
Yeah, I think the saying is driving them into the ground, but in a dump truck, I mean a garbage truck, I guess you'd have to drive it into the dump. Right.
Or the transfer station.
Or the transfer station. Thank you very much. I'm in favor of it too. Thank you.
Okay, anybody from the public have any comments on the DPW part, the chipper box or the trash truck? All right, hearing none. Mr. Fitzgerald, I need you to stick around for a little bit. I gotta ask you about the snow budget a little bit later.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're up doing fleet maintenance, vehicle, 2 pool cars for $70,000. Who's gonna take this one? Robin?
Yeah, I'll discuss this. Again, we have several pool cars at Town Hall. We've been encouraging people to use town vehicles rather than their own, professionally. When we have people go to people's homes for inspections, it's absolutely unprofessional for them to be going in personal vehicles, particularly with no marking that indicates that they're there from the town of Stoughton. It also, from a standpoint of reimbursing mileage, is quite often more cost effective because I get more utilization from one vehicle through multiple departments than I do in reimbursing people's miles. It also reinforces for people who are on, let's say, part-time schedules, who get paid, they go out on the road, they take their own car, and then they would typically go home from there. They don't necessarily come back to check in. And if they did, I'd have to pay the mileage to drive back to check out. But if they're in a town vehicle, there's a little more control, there's a little more monitoring. We look at the miles, we can get a good sense if people are going where they're supposed to go during the hours that they're working. Not that we have issues or that I have any reason to think we do, but I think from a standpoint of our obligation to monitor those things, this is part of an appropriate way to do that. More importantly, some of the cars that we do have are just becoming unsafe. We had the one that our building official was driving would just stop. And that's unsafe, and I cannot put people in vehicles like that. We were trying to pick up 2 cars last year. We held on it because of COVID and trying to keep costs down. I put in for 2 again. Mr. Trunfio and I talked, if we have to reduce it to 1 and maybe I can move 1 out to a special town meeting, I'm willing to do that, break up the purchase of them, which I'd rather do in some ways anyway. But we do need to start. We have a couple of white hybrid vehicles that people may see around town. One of those has been particularly problematic, and the dealership can't even seem to figure out why, and I believe it's past warranty. That thing just stalls sometimes too. So we do have some concerns with these vehicles, and slow but sure, and we will, and I think we've discussed, and it may have happened since looking into that particular vehicle, if there's some type of a manufacturer issue. But generally, we are down, and it becomes really imprudent not to replace a car occasionally when we have so many people. Our engineering department is on the road doing surveys, conservation. I mean, we had an emergency situation today with conservation, and JC was out on the road, had to hop from one location to another. This is just an appropriate use of municipal vehicles for the fact that we have so many people on the road. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Walsh, any comments or questions from municipal ops?
Mute. Do we have any questions on the cars? It appears not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, anybody from FinCom have any questions on the cars?
Chairman,
I do, Ed.
Scott has his hand up and John had his virtual hand up, so whichever you.
We'll do Scott first, then John.
Just real quick, Eddie, through you to town manager Grimm. Robin, I was wondering if the building department, Jack, would get maybe like a pickup or a four-wheel drive. I mean, some of the places he goes with those cars, it's a little rough, you know. That's the only thing I was thinking about there, is that maybe it'd be better off looking for like an Explorer for him, maybe not decked out like Donna's, but you know, something a little bit better.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, if I had my way, everything could be a pickup truck. But,
I know I could appeal to your good senses.
Yeah, you know that one is going to appeal to me. But I do think a reasonable SUV it would be adequate, whether it's an Explorer or what we look at that might be durable. I have personally had Explorers as well when they are pretty durable. But we'll look at a variety of vehicles. But I think that I believe was $35,000 range. We should be able to get an SUV that'll serve our purposes for that.
Yeah.
And you know, the one thing is that with the better fuel efficiency right now, it also isn't imprudent necessarily to get an SUV for gas mileage issues, because they are significantly improving in mileage. Even I know with my own pickup trucks, you know, we're well into the 20s per gallon on a pickup now. So, you know, in the past, that was one of the considerations. Certainly we can look at hybrid models. That does drive the cost up a little. But it's something to think about. But I do think the durability of this vehicle, because it goes to engineering sites, it goes to building official sites, it goes to conservation sites. They may be driving off-road a bit. So yeah, absolutely. I think something kind of durable. The white sedans that we have are great, but they really don't belong off-road.
If you go up Kelsey Drive and you see the rocks that they drop all over those roads, Jack will come back with a pile of junk.
Yeah, I don't want to be coming back for the same car to be replaced in 2 years. You know?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Anzavino.
Yeah, well, that was one of my questions, is what type of vehicles were you looking at? And do you know, or is that open? I couldn't find anything in the.
Yeah, it's open at this point because I wanted to talk to all the parties involved and discuss it with the fleet maintenance, now that we have an actual fleet maintenance division that looks at all the vehicles we have, what the best way to go is. I haven't gone bidding out at this point because it's a pool car. It's going to have so many different uses. I really need to huddle with a group of people. I mean, but I can tell you, likely, yes, it will be an SUV of some sort, all-wheel drive.
Right. You're aware of the agreement the town made when they joined the green communities, that you know that policy and what there are only certain exemptions for what you can do with cars and so forth. And
yes.
just bringing that up because, you know, over time, sometimes people aren't aware of what's going on in the past, or it gets.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's one of the reasons, for example, you know, in the old days, we wouldn't have this problem because retired police cruisers would come to the town and we would then use those for other things that, you know, the durability that a police officer needs and what we may need for other things are different. So we would take retired cruisers in a lot of communities, and I'm sure Stoughton did in the past. But that's one of the things, for example, the green communities precludes us from doing. So yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Anzavino. I will review the regulations too, again.
Yeah, no, like I said, you know, I mean, you're relatively new and this did happen quite a while ago. So
yeah,
with turnover and everything in many different places, I just wanted to raise that just to make sure you were aware of it, because, you know, we get money through that, you know, through joining that, we did get money and so forth. So we do want to make sure we don't violate that agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the things that get lost in the cracks.
Yes. Similar to the other mountain that was made over there with the C&T plant, but you know, we're just trying to avoid those things.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Manager. Yeah, thank you, Town Manager Grimm.
Okay, anybody else on the cars? All right, hearing none. Anybody from the public have any questions on the pool cars? Okay, hearing none. We will move on to the sewer department. They want to buy a pump service truck with a plow and a crane. 75,000. Mr. McNulty, are you here?
Yes, I am. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll get started. We've had a recent hire of a chief pump station mechanic, which is a position we've never had. And that position has allowed us to reduce the water and sewer budgets by a combined 70,000 for FY 2022, because we previously outsourced this work. Repairs and maintenance to pumps, generators, and equipment would now remain in-house. This vehicle will be dedicated to the sewer pump station work and integral towards that end of the repairs. It includes a truck-mounted crane for pulling and reinstalling pumps and a plow to add to the snow plowing fleet. The idea of this article an investment would make sense both short and long term by avoiding outsourcing of most of these repairs. That's it, if you have any questions.
Okay, Ms. Walsh, anybody in your committee have any questions about the sewer truck?
Anyone? Once again, no one's willing to wade into the sewer.
All right, that leaves FinCom. Anybody got any questions about the sewer truck?
Mr. Chairman, I do. I'm sorry, someone else said.
Good, Diane.
Go ahead, Diane.
I'm just curious, you said you hired someone new that has the capability to fix all this pump station, but will this truck be able to be used for other, I know it has a plow, I would assume someone else will be able to drive it, not just that person, correct?
I would hesitate to let that truck wander off to the water side of things, only because of cross-contamination potential. In other words, you don't want to have the bacteria on your tools and cranes and equipment, and then have that truck go over to the water side. But certainly anything within the sewer side, yes.
Okay, so this gentleman would end up plowing them with this truck as well, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Diane Scott, you got a question?
Well, it's more of a statement. You're gonna spend $75,000 for an intricate piece of equipment that's gonna put your pumps in and all that stuff, and then you're gonna stick it out in the snow and the salt and beat the crap out of it plowing snow. I think that's ridiculous that you got a piece like this and have a crane on the back flop. I mean, it's secured, but I would not plow if I had that truck and knew I had to do that kind of work during the time and stuff like that. You can't tell me that this truck, being that intricate, has to be out there pushing a plow.
Well, the main purpose of it's not a delicate piece of equipment. I mean, it's going to have the crane is not going to get damaged from snow plowing, so that's going to be operational regardless.
The crane's made out of, the crane is cable, right?
Yes.
Right. All that salt, all over that crane, just like anything else, Phil. I just can't believe that you plow with a crane on the back of the truck. Nobody does that. Oh, wait a minute, they do at Cambridge, and then you see them going to the junkyard periodically.
Yeah.
I would imagine that, I understand, Mr. Carr, that's a concern. I would imagine that some of the plowing that might be done with this truck would be the accessing into some of those pump stations when the person is going to work. If it's on town property that it's plowing, we're likely not going to deal with the salt and sand issues to the same degree that we would if we were doing regular roadway plowing with it. So
Well, that's what I was trying to get at. If it's opening up a pump station or something like that, I can see that. But to put it on the main line and just grind up and down with all that salt, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I certainly think consideration of where it's best used, and likely if that person has work to do on a pump station, it would be nice for him to have a plow on it to be able to get in through those and not have to take another plow off the road to do that.
That truck has all kinds of servo valves and stuff underneath to run that crane, and the hydraulics and the cables, and the salt eats those things galore.
Point taken.
I know you probably don't think I know what I'm talking about, but that's all right, Phil.
I know you do.
I'm all for it. It's
You know,
just I
and
can't
if-
see grinding away with it.
You know, if it's a matter of the size of town we are, you know, it's a whole big discussion on versatility. And
Yeah, and if this truck wasn't here, it wouldn't be plowing. It'd be a non-issue. Now we're gonna get it, and everything has to plow. It makes no sense. Some
Work-
stuff.
what you said works for me, believe me. Just,
The longevity on this truck would be 15, 20 years. You plow with it, we'll be back here when I'll be older, so it probably won't bother me. Ben's kid will be paying for it.
all right, your comments work for me, trust me.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to comment on that.
Go
that
ahead.
I agree with the previous speaker that if we could get longer life out of a delicate or intricate piece of machinery, that would be good, so we don't have to buy it again in 5 years. Because we replace pickup trucks pretty regular, so I'm guessing that if we were plowing with this truck with crane and whatever the other equipment on there, we wouldn't want to replace that every 5 years or whatever because it was destroyed. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, Ed. Yeah, Phil, this is the Silverado, right? That's the one we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm just going to chime in that based on, you know, what I'm looking at, these things come pretty well decked out as well for, is this a vehicle that this particular individual is going to be taking home every night?
Well, yeah, he's on call, yes.
Pardon me?
He is on call, so yes.
All right. And, all right, and like I said, and I'll just agree with the previous speakers on a vehicle like this. I certainly understand getting into your pump stations and everything else. You need to have access if you don't want to be diverting other trucks to do it in case he's got to go in, or if he's coming in an emergency. I can certainly see where they have to get in. They should be able to clear their way and get in there and so forth. But I would highly recommend this not be put out as one of the town plowing trucks, just to get it out on the road. This should be strictly for the pump stations, period. And I have a long-standing concern with any vehicle that's being used 24/7 by the worker. And I understand if they're on call 24/7, they need to be able to come in. But you know, in the past, there have been issues with, you know, you see the trucks in places where they probably shouldn't be because it's not a family vehicle. It is a town vehicle. That's when you're supposed to be using it. So that's why I ask if it's something that would be going home every night. And I don't know how much extra that would be putting on because I have no idea where the particular individual lives and how far they're traveling with it. But again, I'll reiterate with the cost of the truck and what you're doing with it, I certainly would hope it would just be kept for the pump stations and not be used just as a general plowing truck when we have the storms.
Mr. Anzavino, if I might respond, I absolutely agree with you 100% on the use of vehicles. They are not for personal use. We had this discussion at our department meeting the other day as a reminder for all department directors to remind anybody within their departments who may have a take-home vehicle that they are not to be used for any personal use. They are to get back and forth from work and to come back for emergencies. It's expected that somebody else would have a second vehicle or another vehicle if they wanted to go somewhere else during the day or at night when they get home. Do I understand that people might stop for a cup of coffee on their ride home? Yeah, I do understand that, but I actually even discourage that because in a world of cell phones and everything else, somebody stops and snaps a picture of a town of Stoughton truck, and it just doesn't look good, even if it's a very legitimate, visit. Do I think that if people are out plowing all night and need to stop for a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts? Absolutely, I want them to do that. That's safe. But I don't want people going to Shaw's and Stop and Shop and everything else. It just doesn't, just inappropriate.
Absolutely. Believe me, I know, working with a utility and, somebody stopped on their way home, and where did they stop? They stopped at a package store to pick something up for home.
Yeah.
Of course, they're in a marked truck from the utility. Somebody saw it, took a picture, sent it, not a good look, to say the least. But
we make it clear, no liquor stores or Alex's.
And I certainly understand, yeah. No, and I certainly understand the need. I've gone through this with various superintendents, with how many vehicles actually get taken home every night, and who is it that has them, and why, and it's perfectly valid. You have the water guy that could be going out at any time. You have, in this case, if it's the new mechanic or whatever, if he's got to get out to the pump station. If they're expected to be available all the time, it's understood that they should have the vehicle with them. And I think that has to be within reason as far as where are they living and how much extra are they putting on running back and forth, as opposed to having it in the yard and coming in to do their work. So I leave that up to you to make sure those decisions are made properly. And thank you, Mr. McNulty, and thank you, Robin, for your answers, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, anybody else on the sewer truck? All right, anybody from the public have any comment on the sewer department truck? All right, hearing none. We will move on to the Cedar Hill Golf Course request for equipment, $200,000 of various items. Victor, are you here?
I did not see Victor pop on. And I'm not sure if there was a lost communication on that getting to him. And I apologize if there was. I can address generally what this is regarding. These are a few basically small equipment pieces that need to be repaired, that need to be replaced. Victor has been replacing some of these since the late 80s and early 90s, and they are at the end of their life cycle. Beyond the end of their life cycle, in several cases, there are not even parts available for them. He came in initially with a request that was a little bit higher, and I asked him to shave that back a little just because things are so tight. And and he did that. And I'm just getting a text from Mr. Jaffoon that Victor had an emergency, so we may have lost him tonight. So I don't know the specifics on equipment per se. I certainly am not an expert on green machines. But I do know that each of the pieces of equipment that he discussed with me were extremely old and at this point beyond repair. Many of you know Victor goes in on his own and spends basically the winter repairing equipment as we can. He's actually extremely mechanically inclined, and he does all the repairs for us. But at this point, some of this equipment is just beyond repair. Given how busy the golf course is, maintenance is critical. I believe on Sunday, we actually had a record sales day for numbers this past Sunday. But that kind of wear and tear on the golf course, as thrilled as we are, also requires increased maintenance. And so I did support Victor in this request. And again, he had an emergency, so I can't answer the detailed questions, but I hope that at least helps.
Okay, Ms. Walsh, anybody on your committee have any questions on the Cedar Hill equipment?
Anyone?
I have one.
Heidi? Dan?
Didn't we buy a greens mower last year?
That was a mower or a sprayer? We bought some.
We bought a sprayer last year.
I thought it was a mower. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, sprayer. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else from the committee?
Ms. Walsh, this is Heidi Tucker, Precinct 8, Muni Apps. I can totally see the value of us investing in something like this year with the pandemic. Golf has gotten incredibly popular. And, I've kind of been on the fence and more supportive of Cedar Hill. And every time I drive by there, it's very, very busy. And I did drive by on Sunday and was very happy to see that it was being used so much. So I support getting this piece of equipment.
Thank you, Heidi. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, Deb.
Are we sure we didn't buy a lawnmower last year that could cut something very small? I thought it was last year. I didn't think it was just a sprayer.
Yeah, we bought a little hand walk behind little greens mower kind of thing.
We know how much that cost last year? I just don't have my notes from last year.
I don't know, it's between 15 and 30,000, something like that.
I thought it was more like 60.
Yeah, it was.
That thing?
Yes, it was very expensive.
We bought a tractor a few years ago. That may be what you're thinking of. It's $35,000, I believe.
I don't have
and,
one.
And that was to do multiple things. You can attach a mower to it, but it also, if that's what you're referencing, that can be used for mowing, but it also gets used for other excavation type work as well.
I'll have to check my notes.
Yeah, I'm just not 100% sure.
I thought we bought one last year. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Bill, can you check your warrant information from last year? See if we have any information on that?
Yeah, just give me a few minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I can find that for you.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else from Municipal Ops have any questions?
It doesn't appear so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then anybody from FinCom have some questions?
I do, Ed. I want to try and give Bill some time to find that information, so I got a question.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm assuming that what I'm looking at that had come in from Victor is this the turf products estimate that he had in the earlier pages of this whole thing. He had sent something in saying he was removing the $52,000 item.
Yes.
Which, according to this, would have been the Real Master has come out. So this had been estimated at 235, and he's taken that out. So this is at 200. So just so people understand, right? This is looking at a four-wheel drive, a Groundmaster 40. It's a four-wheel drive flow divider kit. There was a Green Master. The first one was 81,000. This one here is a 40,000, and it's got a roller, a groomer, 11-blade cutting unit, and then there's a $35,000 piece of equipment, which was a wide roller, and then the other item that was in here, the 26,000, was a high flow hydraulic kit, a hand throttle, and it just says it's a Workman two-wheel drive vehicle. So this is actually for 4 items.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I mean, I'm reading what's on here, and it's unfortunate Victor can't be with us to explain exactly what these are, but I just wanted to make sure this was the latest, and that was the one item
Yes.
that was coming out. Okay.
Yes, so he removed the 50-some-odd thousand. He believes he can hold a little while and will likely in the future come back and ask for that. I think that the smaller numbered item may be accessories for the larger four-wheel drive. It may be an accessory package of some sort. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, actually, yeah, that's the $80,000
Right.
one is a
Right,
float.
and then I think there's an accessory package.
Yeah, and it could be, but I just wanted to make sure that what I was looking at was the latest, and I made sure I had the right item coming off.
If there's a specific question on the need or the use of those, just drop me an email and I'll have Victor get that answer to me as soon as possible.
Sure. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody else?
Yes, I have a question.
Good, Jess.
Thank you. Just reading the information that Victor did send along too. So it looks like he's asking to basically fully replace his whole fleet except for holding off on one piece of the equipment. And I guess my question is, isn't there some value in the idea of staggering the fleet replacement so we don't end up with all of the machines dying at the same time and then we got to replace 5? Again, sort of kind of phasing this in terms of replacements rather than doing, so many at once and then coming up and then it being such a big hit to the town again, down the line.
And certainly one of the things that I've got tasked in front of me, and unfortunately was a little derailed because of COVID, which throws all capital plans off to some degree, was to produce a 5-year plan for all departments like we have for fire department. And so, yeah, rolling of a replacement process is absolutely important. What I don't know in this case is, I don't think this is his whole fleet of small equipment. This is some pieces that just got to the end. And it's sort of that fine line like we talked about with the trash truck. You want to kind of work everything until to get every last ounce out of it, which I'm really actually very proud that we have that and someone like Victor with his skill set to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But the danger of that is all of a sudden you can't get them fixed and now we can't get parts for any of them. So I agree, a better plan, and that might mean rolling one over a little sooner the first time to get the cycle going. But ideally, yes, we would like to get that cycle going. But like I said, in this case, I think 2 of the pieces are related to each other. It's an accessory package with one. But I agree that we need to take a whole look at the master list of equipment for the golf course, for all departments, and do that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I understand that, at this point it's so antiquated and, it doesn't make sense to be trying to keep some of these things going and repairing them further, but it would be helpful if Victor could provide us a little more context in terms of like, what does the entire fleet consist of? Because it sounds like he says his current fleet is collectively 96 years old. 3 out of the 5 machines are discontinued. So, I guess it would just be helpful to have the kind of context and to see maybe what his kind of and your capital plan would be for this, and to try to just, not make it such a large amount.
Absolutely. I'll try to get a full equipment list. Have him produce, if he can, for me, a full equipment list.
Okay, thank
And
you.
the age.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
What? Mr. Rowe, information, please.
I was going to give you.
Okay. Yeah, so we authorized a green sprayer back in October, 60,000. That's been purchased. Well, that's been ordered anyway. I don't know if he's taken delivery or not. But then May of 19, we authorized a tractor for 35,000. The actual cost came in at 33,385. We had some kitchen upgrades in 16. The greens mower back in 16 for $10,684. And then we bought a rough mower in 15, or authorized a rough mower in 15 for 8,000. So that's about it. So maybe you were thinking about the tractor?
I think it's the
From
tractor.
19.
Yeah, we did discuss that tractor could also serve to do some mowing when we were talking about the reasons that it was important to purchase that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify. So did a previous speaker say that we had a mower from 15, a mower from 16, a tractor from 19, and a sprayer from 20? Is that correct, Mr. Rowe?
That's what it sounds like.
Let's see. Yeah, we bought a rough mower we authorized a rough mower in 15 for 8,000. We authorized a tractor in 15, but that was rescinded. We authorized a greens mower in 16 for 11,000 or $10,684. We had some kitchen upgrades. And then the tractor was authorized in May of 19. And the actual cost was $33,385. And then the green sprayer was authorized for $60,000 in last October. For $60,000.
Okay, so rough mower in 15, greens mower in 16, a tractor in 19, and a green sprayer in 20. Is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you very much. My other question is, I guess this is reduced from 235,000 down to 200,000. Is that correct? To whoever can answer that.
I don't have the number in front of me. I do know that we reduced the one item that was about a $53,000 item, but I don't know when we recalculated everything, what it came out to, and the last, my warrant book is actually on my other desk. I apologize, I was in hearings all day and literally just made it in time for this meeting tonight. So I do know that we did reduce one item. I thought it was, for some reason, it was a $53,000 item off the top of my head. I just can't do the math in my memory because I don't remember what my starting number was.
I thought Mr. Anzavino had said it was 35. That's why I was going with the 200,000.
Yes, Vaughn, the estimate we had, the total price on the estimate was 235, 484, 88. That included 5 items, and the prelude to the estimate was they weren't going to order the $52,000 item at this time, and that was actually $52,146.32. So yes, they reduced it from 235 and change down to 200. So they reduced it by 35, 484, 88, but they knocked out a piece of equipment that was 52,146.32.
Okay.
So
If they took 235 and then deducted 52 off, they'd get less than 200 though. That's why I was a little confused.
yep, you would.
Oh, okay. So
The amount reduced, the amount being asked for in the warrant is not the product, or it's not the result of the 235 less what they said they were taking out.
Okay.
Yeah, I just need to calculate from the final estimates that he got. He was still in the process of getting some final estimates when we put the initial warrant together. So it may just be that has not just been recalculated. But again, I just don't have all the material in front of me at this moment. And as I, did not know Mr. Bruiser would have certainly an emergency. So I'm again,
right.
You have all the estimates right now. Right now, what you have for estimates on each of those pieces of equipment in the backup, though, are the numbers.
Yeah, the quote was done in December of 2020. So I assume this. I mean, it is marked draft, but that was the quote. If you actually took out the 52K item, the number comes out to like 183,338. But
I think if you add up all the other items, those may have been adjusted when the quotes came in, and that may be why some may have tweaked up and we removed the one larger item. But again, we'll just add up what we have in that backup material.
Right. I can only go by the information we have in front of us. So
yep.
I agree with Mr. Anzavino. I'm looking at the same quote from December 11th. It was 235, 484, 88 now. Subtract off the 52. Okay, but anyway, my next question is to Mr. Rowe. Is this a borrowing article? And if so, for how many years would this be bonded for? And what would that payment be toward the Cedar Enterprise Fund?
Can you hear me?
Yep, good.
Okay. So the select board determines what the useful life of the equipment would be. I suppose they would go, where it's various pieces, there would be an average useful life, I would assume. I'm guessing maybe 10 to 15 years. So let's see. So probably let's say probably 15 years, 15-year life. So 200,000 divided by 15 plus interest.
Yeah, that seems kind of long. We're going to be trading it out to keep our schedule.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to. It'll probably be an average where it's a package. It'll probably be an average useful life, I guess. Might be less than that. It could be 10 years.
So what would the bond be? We're going to bond this over 10 years. I wouldn't imagine we bond it for longer than the useful life. At least I would hope not. So if we're going to, are we looking at 10 years on this thing, on this bond, or 15, or?
Well, I don't know. We'd have to check that with Victor. Victor would have an idea of what the useful life would be, the average useful life.
Do we have any idea what the cost would be per year, if we know what the years are? If it's 10 or 15?
Well, it would be, you know, it's $20,000 to $20,000 a year, plus interest.
Okay, so could you give us a number on this, what we would be paying per year?
Yeah, if you give me a few minutes, I can,
Sure,
the
sure.
DOR's
Okay, thank you. I didn't
calculator and.
All right, I just didn't know if we're doing a 10-year, or 15-year, or 20-year, or what we're
No
doing.
way, do 15.
No way, do 15, all right.
And Vaughn, I know at one point we did receive some information on these capital items for useful life, and I think we actually got it from Bill. Or there was an email string that was going, and they had asked about them, and some things came back with ranges, and he said, no, I really need to know a price, a fixed number. And then there was a time frame put to the useful life of these equipments, and I remember it had things from DPW. I'm pretty sure it was Cedar Hill. I can't put my finger on it, you know, but I remember seeing something coming in where they were defining the useful life of these. And I'm pretty sure Bill was the one that had asked the question, and I'm sure it had to do with putting stuff together like this. So it's in there somewhere. It is in here somewhere.
Yeah, we just did it for the green sprayer. That was 15 years. So let me see, just plug this in here. So 200,000. Let's say interest rate. I'm going to say well, interest rates are going up, so let's say 2.5 for 10 years. And level principal. So let's see. So 25,000 a year for year one.
So would we have 25 a year? If that were to pass, would we have to change the Cedar Hill budget to add $25,000 on there? I think it's being subsidized for $9,000 this year. So would we have to adjust that to be 34,000?
So what would happen is he wouldn't be able to buy it until July 1st, and that would be fiscal 22. So we'd float it through the general treasurer's general cash for the year, and then we'd have to finance it at the end of fiscal 22. So the interest and principal payments wouldn't start until fiscal 23.
But then
so it would have no effect on would have no effect on the 22 budget.
But then going forward, we would be adding $25,000 onto that budget per year then to fund that.
Right. Yeah. Well, 25, it decreases with time. Goes 25, 24.5, 24, 23.5. Yeah, but yes.
But the first year in that we'd be paying, we'd be adding 25 on.
But to be clear, we may not have to subsidize, but we may not have to subsidize that 25 depending on what their numbers look like. So it would only be a subsidy if they needed, if they weren't making their numbers.
I'm just basing it on where we are now, though. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had another question.
Yeah, Jess.
Thanks. No, I was just kind of looking back at this too, and I think, I don't know the difference between a grounds master, a greens master, and a real master, or any of these things, but I was just thinking about the cost. We're just talking about a somewhat specialized piece of equipment with a crane and a plow, and the cost there was $75,000, which seemed like a lot, but then a grounds master for the course cost $81,000. And I was just thinking, this is awful expensive equipment we're talking about here. So I guess I was wondering, is there any kind of competitive bidding process for this? And is there, I guess the other point would be like, is there some way in which there are, pieces of equipment that could get the job done that are not $80,000 pieces of equipment? I guess it would be great if maybe Victor could kind of come in and explain exactly why these are the pieces of equipment he needs, and whether or not there are any less expensive options given the very high prices for some of these things.
What I can answer for you is anything purchased has to go through procurement for a bid process, for a low bid process. So that's standard, and this would have been the lowest prices we received going out. And even if what you got in your packet was what Victor may have gotten for a price, we still, before we purchased, would have to go out to bid, and if anything, would come in better than what we asked for. He may have put out an RFQ at that point a request for quotes prior with Fran. I'm not 100% sure, but before any purchase, absolutely would go out for bid for the cheapest. I do believe a lot of this equipment is highly specialized, and so one's a greens mower, and again, I know farm equipment, I don't know golf course equipment. But I do know that there are certain things to do greens a certain way and the rough a certain way and regular mowing. And the tractor was for, any type of excavation work that we could do that we didn't have to outsource. So a lot of times things that we're buying are to do it in lieu of outsourcing. And frankly, if he makes it last 30 years for $80,000, that's not so bad. But to our point with the garbage truck, most things are not going to last 30 years anymore, just because of the quality of equipment, how equipment's made. But again, I'll have Victor get you more descriptive discussion on why these particular pieces of equipment.
Yeah, and if these are just sort of replacing the kinds of equipment he already had, as opposed to, a full upgrade across the board, it's like, are these the kinds of things they're using at Pebble Beach, and do we need to be doing that in the town of Stoughton, for instance, is what I'm trying to get at. So.
I believe these are just basically replacing what 30 years ago was made. They are probably upgraded to some degree. I would like to think technology might have upgraded a little since 1986 or 88. But no, I agree. We are not Pebble Beach. We just need to be maintained nicely and groomed.
Thank you for taking my concerns.
Understood. I wish I knew more about golf, but I don't.
Yeah, maybe Victor, we're gonna meet tomorrow night. Maybe he could come tomorrow night and maybe go over some of this, if he can make it.
I'm not sure the nature of the emergency, so I can't commit to that for him, but certainly we'll request that.
If it's possible.
Absolutely.
All right, anybody else? Anybody from the public have any questions on the Cedar Hill golf equipment?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Mark Zemanian, 5 Low Avenue. I just, there's some frustration with this. Being that we're in a pandemic, I was kind of hoping, and I fully understand that Victor has an emergency, so I'm not placing blame on Victor for this, but as a member of the public, and a town meeting representative, I look at all these things very carefully, try and vet them. It would be really helpful to the public if Victor can come. Otherwise, these sorts of things end up getting vetted on the town meeting floor, and that's not a great place to vet these sort of things. I have a number of questions about the types of equipment he's buying. Being a business owner, when I run into expenses that are beyond my business's ability to absorb easily, I often look at alternatives, different companies that make equipment, perhaps used equipment that's in solid shape. I never see that happening here, and the golf course has been heavily subsidized for so many years. And I think, we're finally getting that number down, but I feel like this is just a further subsidy, and it's very frustrating to me. So I understand what Victor's trying to do. He's trying to get the equipment up to par, but I kind of mirror what a previous speaker said about, we got to get serious about how we're spending our money. We're just working in an unsustainable fashion, in my opinion. And, that brings no votes to the floor. So I'm sort of asking, please, if you can, see if Victor can come before this board so the public has an opportunity to get some of these questions answered.
And absolutely, but I would respectfully point out that the pandemic did increase awareness and use of the golf course. The more use it gets, the more it needs to be groomed. And I will tell you that, and we discussed this when we were talking about the Golf Course Enterprise Fund, we anticipate that use will stay at an upper level. Many of the people who became new golfers. And if that happens, that's a great problem to have. but with use comes increased maintenance. And that's just the nature of the beast. Equipment gets used more, it wears out more. But again, I would also point out, and to Dr. Miner's point, should we plan and roll these purchases a little bit better? Yeah, in the future on a capital basis, absolutely. But in the short term, I do have a person running the golf course who his job description isn't equipment repair, but he does it. And don't misunderstand me. I expect all of my people to use whatever talents they have to their fullest capacity on behalf of the people of the town. And Victor does do that. And he does a tremendous job repairing this equipment. But at some point, if parts are not available, they're just not available, and we need the equipment. And I would certainly agree that Victor needs to address the very specific uses of each of these pieces of equipment. But I just want to be clear that we don't spend wantonly. And I understand the concern about unsustainable borrowing. But if you look at what we just heard tonight, we have a trash truck that's 28 years old. Where, we got rid of an outside contractor. And yes, we're buying a sewer truck because we get rid of an outside contractor through restructuring in our replacing one position with another that can better serve us. So yes, we have to make a capital investment into a piece of equipment to accommodate that and still save $70,000 on the budgets of those enterprise funds. So basically what I'm trying to say is, yeah, I agree with you. We need to be very careful how we borrow, and it is not prudent to continue to borrow without a plan, and that's what we're working toward. But I will tell you, the increased use on that golf course is tremendous, and with that is going to come expense, and we just need to plan out better how to spend that money in a more spread out kind of a way, as we were discussing earlier. But Victor can answer the specifics on the equipment, absolutely.
Right, and don't get me wrong, Dr. Grimm, I'm not questioning Victor's ability to do his job. I've seen nothing but good come out of Victor. I have supported him a number of times on the CPC when he's brought articles to us. So this isn't really about that. This is about, and you'll notice I didn't see anything to Mr. Fitzgerald about the dump truck, because he spent a good deal of time vetting that, and he's answered all the questions. He's crossed his T's and dotted his I's. I have an appreciation for that as a town meeting representative. I am struggling with this because I'm not even sure what we're buying. As far as the sustainability, I know we're running into some issues there. I know that this committee breathed a sigh of relief when we returned $550,000 this year from the CPC, unencumbering it. I know how tight we are. I keep a pretty close watch on the budget. And I understand the increase in the use of the golf course in this particular year. I think you're going to see some shrinkage of that. I don't think, it's going to be party time as much as I hope it will be. And I commend Victor's efforts. I think we have to be realistic. So I thank you for your time, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hearing my comments.
Okay. Anybody else from the public have a comment on Cedar Hill equipment? All right, hearing none. We are done with that article, and that takes care of all our articles tonight. Which brings up a little issue for tomorrow night. Not sure how we go about this. Mr. Moderator, are you out there?
I am out here, Mr. Chairman.
Municipal ops and intergovernmental are on for tomorrow night for the fire station. However, the selectmen are not, they're going to withdraw the article.
That's correct.
So I don't know if those committees need to be present.
Well, let me make, Mr. Chair.
We have to hear the article because it's on the warrant, even if it's going to be withdrawn, but I'm not sure how you want to attack it.
Well, let me explain, sir. Let me make a moderator's decision, since I'll ask first Dr. Grimm, if you don't mind. My understanding is the select board did withdraw the article on the fire station, which was Article 26. Is that still correct, Dr. Grimm?
Yes, as far as I am aware. Yes.
All right. So the way I like to proceed is, so we won't waste everybody's time tomorrow night, the standing committees, municipal operation, intergovernmental. We should not hear that article tomorrow night. It's been withdrawn. I want, in my capacity as moderator, it will not come you know, there'll be a motion on the floor, meeting floor. I'll ask for a motion to withdraw the article right away. So we should not hear that article tomorrow night.
Is that everybody, us too?
Yes, you should, it's withdrawn. Why waste everybody's time? I don't understand. I just don't want you to open the meeting, have a public hearing on that article. That could create problems down the road. I think the prudent fact would be to make the announcement at tomorrow night's meeting that we will not be hearing that article at all. It has been withdrawn.
Okay, fine.
That makes sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think the concern, Bob, was that we're gonna open our public hearing tomorrow.
Yeah, we have to do it anyways, yeah.
Because we have other things on there.
Correct.
We're gonna open the public hearing, and Article 26 was listed, you know, as a joint, but my intent would have just been to do exactly that, saying we're not gonna be hearing Article 26 because it's being withdrawn by the Board of Selectmen.
I will talk to the.
On the meeting when they voted to withdraw it, so.
That's correct. You're absolutely correct, John. What I'll do is I'll contact Stephanie Crowe, the town clerk, tomorrow and see if we can amend the agenda just to write on it that article specifically.
Just to remove it, yeah.
That should, I believe we can do that. I just want to make sure it's not a violation of open meeting law, but I believe.
Right, right.
Agenda, just
Okay.
write on it, that particular article withdrawn, and you just don't even talk about it tomorrow night. You can just announce to people, whoever didn't see the amended article that's been withdrawn, and just proceed to the other articles.
You can
that's
always,
how we
you
got-
can always remove articles, Bob. You can never add.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, in light of that information, I'm going to ask the members of municipal operations to vote to close our public hearing. Could I have a motion? Could someone,
So be it.
Second,
Second.
Jared Rose? Cynthia Walsh says yes. Dan?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Stacy? Mark?
Yes.
Heidi?
yes.
Now, before we adjourn, members of municipal operations, a meeting has been scheduled for Monday, March 29th at 7 p.m., at which time we will take votes on all 18 of our articles. I'm hoping we can get a quorum. If you can't make it, I think you all have my number. You can call the moderator. So that's Monday, March 29th, 7 p.m., and you'll get the link from the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, now, motion to adjourn for municipal operations. Jared? Cynthia, yes. Dan?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Stacy? Mark?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
Thank you all, and I hope I see you on Monday, or I'll be joining the meeting probably by the telephone. Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Ms. Walsh. Good night. All right, so that takes care of the joint part of our meeting. We won't be hearing the fire station thing tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be nice if that could just be amended so that that's removed.
Yeah, well, we'll just say something and that'll be that, but, all right, so that brings us to, it's getting late, budget stuff. Mr. Rose sent out a new update on a few adjustments for some interest stuff, I think it was today. I don't know. Can't keep track of time anymore. We have some slight decrease, I think 524 to 502, which brings us to the snow budget. Mr. Fitzgerald, are you out there still?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Rowe sent out a new update today saying we're 342 short. You had something the other couple weeks ago, it was like 4 something. Do you have any more bills coming? Do you know where we're at, or can you opine on that, please?
I actually, Robin asked for that update today. I didn't get it till late in the day, and I talked with the accounts payable person. Most of them have been paid. I don't think there's any large ones out there. But one of the things we have to do, some of the requisitions need to be increased. So it's kind of caught up in munis. So to get a final number, I feel more comfortable speaking with Bill in the accounting department tomorrow.
Yeah, because we have to vote the size of the deficit, and that's one of the driving numbers. So right now it's penciled in at 400 because that's where we started back in January. And if it stays there, we know where we are, whatever. But if it's over, we got to know. So if you could give us some heads up tomorrow, firm it up a little more, that'd be good.
Yep. I'd feel more comfortable having a little bit of time to dig into to make sure I'm not missing anything. But from what I understand, most of the larger invoices are in.
And hopefully there's no like big encumbrances that you have to take off, or purchase orders that are open that you won't be needing, or things of that nature.
Right. We can go through and close those up.
Or April Fool's Day blizzards.
That's the other thing. Every year this request gets earlier and earlier, and you never know what's out there.
I know.
Fingers crossed, everybody.
1996, April 1st, 36 inches.
1997, I remember it vividly.
Listen, I keep my plow is still on my 350 because I know the second I pull it off, we're going to get a snowstorm. So I promise I will keep it on there until we get this budget solidified.
Nope, I pulled them all off, took the weights out of the truck, washed the sanders, it's over.
It's over, huh?
That means a snowstorm's coming, Scott.
That's all.
You know that.
He's subbing it out if you have
the
to.
same.
All right,
Well,
so
mine's done, I'm holding tough.
all right, we're gonna kind of go a little fast and furious the next couple times. We're gonna meet tomorrow. We'll start firming things up. I'm gonna schedule next Wednesday and Thursday for meetings. We'll do all our votes and whatever else we gotta do. We gotta be done on Thursday. That's the last possible day, 4/1. And that is kind of where we are at as of tonight. You heard the capital articles. I'm kicking around the idea of some of the money we scraped up. And maybe we can find a little more. We might be able to pay cash for all that small stuff, scraping stuff around. Bill, did you have a chance to look at any old articles we could use for the roofs for those two for the golf course and the hut, the dog hut?
Yeah, I'll have a lineup by next week, Mr. Chairman, of where you might want to assign old bond proceeds and so forth. And
do we have any bond premium left?
Just one more thing I wanted to say. If you plan on taking 21 budget from any of the departments, you may want to make the department heads aware of it. Just so you know, because I have to freeze their budgets, for the amount that you're taking. So I just want to make sure the department heads are aware.
Yeah, we had passed one. Robin reviewed all that, so that's kind of been looked at. The other areas I was thinking about was, Robin, any news on contracts for tomorrow night?
So I will definitely, I sent you an email tonight during this meeting with an MOA for SPEA union. I know you all like them incorporated into the contracts. There literally just is not time for that. What I will do is get you a copy of the most recent contract so you can compare those sections of the MOA, because I do know you like to see them in context. Tomorrow I will mail you the last SPEA contract, which included the 1.5 1 year that they took, and that will have everything updated. And then the current MOA was ratified by that body, and the board supported it moving forward as well. We do have, the board did approve what we've put forward for the Superior Officers Union. There were some questions on a wage scale. I talked to their attorney today. and asked if they would be able to get a ratification vote by tomorrow, so I can at least present it to you. I know it's short notice, and I know you don't like that, but this one has been with arbitrators and mediators, and I've done everything I can do to try to get this forward. But unfortunately, we have a lot of third parties involved and some challenging negotiations. So because it hasn't gone in front of their body, I really am hesitant to put out the details of it. It would be inappropriate for me to do that. But I am hopeful I may have that one for you as well tomorrow night. Spayers is relatively simple. And I will tell you, because their body has seen it and you have seen it, that what it does is it removes any references now to the automatic 2.5s, to any automatic raises, and then just deals basically with a traditional COLA with no additional steps involved right now. We are still looking to move off of any old grid system for classification and create a healthy new classification system that will eventually roll longevity in. But for time purposes right now, we left the longevity where it was, but the raises will be proportionally lower. And I'm hopeful you will see the merit in that. And at this point, it basically just makes whole the people who didn't get the 2.5 when other people did. And then moving forward, I think we're in 1.75 ranges for the out years. They are mirroring non-union. And there's an agreement that there would be some continuation to mirror at minimum non-union. So they would not be in a situation where they got less than a non-union employee on the out year.
How many years was that contract for?
This is a 3-year contract I'll be presenting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will we have
And
any,
they're finishing the 1 year, so we're really caught up with them if this goes through.
will we see any financial analysis for this 3-year contract?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Susan try to run some numbers for me on this. I can tell you that the first year of it is the current year that we're in, and we will be financially whole for that. We anticipated that. And based on what we had added into the budget next year, that discussion we had about what was in the budget, what wasn't, basically what you're looking at is a 2.5 from last year that was not calculated in last year for some employees. Others already got it. And some other employees had only gotten a 1.5, while I believe some had a 2.5. So what it does is it gives a 1% increase to the people who had not gotten the 2.5 old step. So you're going to see people who got 2.5s already aren't going to change, but other people who had 1.5s will be getting 1 plus a 1.75. So for next year, what you'll be seeing is a 2.75% increase for those employees, the 1.75 and the 1. I'll explain it more when you have it in front of you. But
Yeah,
basically,
I'm reading it as you're talking, so.
yeah.
That's why I'm asking if we're gonna have the analysis.
Yeah, I'll try to get you an analysis, but what I can tell you is, it actually, there probably will be a little wiggle room on those line items, because I had anticipated possibly removing longevity and bumped up the raises a little bit more. Because we didn't do that, the raises didn't go up quite as high, and the longevity stayed. So those salary line items might have a little wiggle room in there, but my point is we are more than capable of covering what's in there per this agreement. So I'll do my best to get your fiscal run on it. I've had Susan running numbers on the Superior Officers Union, because that's a much larger impact for the town.
Well, yeah, because we can certainly, you know, we'll certainly get into that in more detail tomorrow with that on the agenda. And, you know.
Okay, and did you get a chance to talk to the treasurer about the sewer interest?
Yeah, I sent her an email. She was confused by my question. She didn't know if I was asking if we could get 4% or what 4% would be. So I did respond to her that what you want to know is what the number is at 4%. I'm looking in my email. I had emailed her back around 5. I haven't gotten an email back since then. But the question is on her desk. I did clarify that what you're looking for is the actual amount at 4%.
Yeah, but I want to know, can we tweak the number that's there? It's 225 or whatever. Can we go to 200?
Right.
That's
You want
what I'm
to
looking
know,
for.
right. But she was unclear what the question was, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Rowe.
Yeah, on that sewer project, you know, we're figuring 5 million. Now could be down to 3,950,000. Long story short, if we're not going to be spending any money this fiscal year, we only need to budget for a half a year's interest. So if Mr. Tisdale can guarantee that we won't be contracting it before July 1st, then we only need to budget for a half year's interest. Because, you know, if anything we spend before the end of the year, you got to finance. But if it goes into the fiscal 22, then we don't need, we'd probably go to bond in October. We'd only need a half year's interest. So.
Yeah. Good point, Bill. Good point.
All right, can you work that out, Mr. Tisdale, for tomorrow night? Just make sure if that's how it's gonna play out, so we're safe. I don't wanna have a problem, but, cause that
Right.
would free up like 100,000 from the deficit if we can do that, but, need you
Yeah,
to, you know.
that's very important. The timing is very important on this. Yeah.
There's a word you use for government that they don't like, guarantee, so, so you need to check that out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
back to the discussion earlier from a previous speaker about contracts. I did
Yep.
send out an email to the committee a little bit ago in regards to an email that we just got a little bit before 9. I just sent it out. So the contracts, the SPAYA contract, there's an email about that. So members of the committee, just take a look at your email. Just wanted to tell you. Thank you.
I saw it, and thank you, Mr. Menokini. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ed, I have a question for you.
yeah.
Why don't we look at the time?
Yeah,
it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, we already lost.
No, it's getting late.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah, it's getting
close
late,
out.
and I have a question. You made a statement, I think, that tomorrow we'll finish up, and then we're gonna be voting next week.
Well, we can vote tomorrow.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, the Article 26, which was gonna be the big one, is gone. And
Right.
then for 3 collective bargaining. And if we have one we know we're gonna talk about, maybe another, maybe not. I mean, if we only have the one contract to discuss tomorrow, I would think that, if we get through that and we don't have the other ones and we're gonna close the public hearing, we can close the public hearing and start our deliberations tomorrow night. And that way we're not tied into just 2 nights next week or what have you. Because you
Yeah,
know
well-
the fire station was gonna be the big time consumer.
Yeah, that was gonna be the big one, right?
So since that's gone, and the only other thing was 3 contracts, and Robin told, you know, we got one tonight. And she'll
Well,
have
that'll
to
come
run
down
that
to the
tomorrow.
question of, how you're gonna vote those other 2 or whatever. We're gonna do the standard language or refer to town meeting, you know, that kind of thing, but.
Yeah, I mean,
Our usual discussion.
we can figure that out when we go through our deliberations and take a vote.
I agree with Mr. Anzavino. We could start this tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Why cut ourselves short? Don't give us an early night just because we only had one thing to go through. Let's utilize the time and cut back on the
Yeah,
big.
well,
push.
we could probably start working on a bunch of articles, because the budget's still in flux.
Budget's
so-
in flux, but we could certainly go through some of the articles and,
Yeah,
you know, if people have some issues or anything with the budget, they could certainly just raise the issues so people can start thinking about it, but I would think we could certainly go through some of those articles, you know, starting tomorrow, and we could probably knock off a bunch of them that are, you know, some of the more standard ones, or maybe the less controversial, we should be able to go through.
okay, there's one other item I want you guys to think about. We have an article for $100,000 for the sewer, stormwater thing, which we've already discussed about, maybe it should go in the budget. If we
Yeah.
put it in the budget, we just added $100,000 to the deficit. It's an ongoing thing, but if we do decide to do it, that should be the precedent going forward, and not flip-flopping every year. Oh, the budget, we have to cut it, take it out, put it for an article. All that nonsense would have to go away, so, think about that for tomorrow night too.
Sure. Maybe we can steal some of that 2.85 million.
Well, it ain't guaranteed yet. There's no strings. Nobody knows. You gotta write your congressman and find out what's going on.
I will tell you, Congressman Lynch's office has been reaching out to all the town managers, getting all of our contact information. And he does anticipate that he'll be calling all of us individually, I believe, to discuss this further.
Sure.
There's still also a second pot of money that's sitting in Norfolk County that is to be distributed to all of the towns in the county. If you were an individual town that is not in a county, you got the money directly. Now we have to get it from Norfolk County. All of the Norfolk County town managers are working together as well on that to determine or to ensure that that money gets distributed
And
to us. That's a
who
second
gets
pot
to
of
vote
money.
on that? The Norfolk County Commissioners?
Probably, but we will be on them. And,
Okay.
and
Robin,
once
do we
again,
know what that money can be used for?
we don't have a lot of detail on the county money at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
But we will keep an eye on it. I'll be a little bit hawkish on it. Once again, my big mouth will come in handy for outside of town. But I will keep up on that. And I do know from Susan, there's also, it appears that there's some significant money that will be coming for the schools, as I mentioned. Last time they had 92,000 come in a week or two ago. There's another 92,000 coming within the next few months. And I believe in these funding rounds, there will be even more coming as a result of these COVID recovery packages. So there may even be more coming for the schools. I'll keep you up to date as I hear things.
All right, so that's kind of where we're at.
Jim, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I need a motion to
That's
continue.
what I was
public-
just gonna do. I wanna make a motion to continue this public hearing to Thursday, March 25th at 7:15 PM via a virtual Zoom meeting that Mr. Enochian will make sure we all have the link to. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Ed votes yes. Bob?
Yes.
Chet?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
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 Ben? I think he signed off. Joe?
He left.
He's gone. Don Angelino?
Yes,
D. John Rock? Is he gone?
on.
10:30.
Oh, yeah.
Marty?
Yeah, he's gone.
Yes.
Elliot?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Enoch?
Hang on. Elliot, you answered for me.
I did.
Yes, yeah.
Well, for God's sakes, don't be shy. Speak up.
Let me mute you, okay? Mr. Chairman, I'd like to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Enoch?
Well, Enoch doesn't look to be on, but just for the record, Gilda, that you could report that he was here for most of the meeting. He came in a little bit late, and it didn't look like he could stay late. So, just for
Is
the
he
record,
your adopted son?
Just
He
came
is.
in a few minutes.
He is. I keep tabs. I have to keep tabs.
He's schooling him. He's schooling him on the ways of the finance committee.
That's the standard thing, right? You come in late and go home early.
Yeah.
Yeah, my little brother was never late.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Ed says yes. Bob?
Yes.
Chet?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
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 Here, Joel's not here. John Angelino?
Yes, for me and everybody that left.
Marty?
Yes.
Elliot?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Speak up, Vaughn.
If you'd stop talking, I could. Yes.
We are closed. See everybody tomorrow night at 7:15 PM.
And get a good night's sleep, Robin.
Have a
I
good
can
night.
see